Welcome to the Threshing Floor Podcast, your premier destination for discussion and commentary on the redemption trading card game and its community. Kick back and relax as we catch you up on the latest news, tournament results, and deck building strategies to take your game to the next level. Now, here are your hosts, John Hendricks and Agur the Wise.
All right, guys. That's right. I am John Hendricks, as always. This is our co-host. I guess we can drop the new title. This is 4 episodes in.
I'm old
we've
now.
We've got our old co-host. We've got Jake, who is also known by Agur the Wise. So if you need wisdom, you go and see my boy Agur, okay?
Yeah, well, in the Bible, that guy, not me. Because he said, surely I'm more stupid than any man, and that's the quote I love for him because it fits me.
Oh, that's probably accurate for most guys, although we're probably too headstrong to admit it. But here we are. We are on episode number 79. It does kind of get me a little excited because we're inching closer and closer to episode 100, which I don't know what we're going to do for that one. But
oh man,
whenever we get to episode 100, we're going to have to do something big, something huge. Andy, you're going to have to give away something maybe. I don't know.
It'll be amazing. It's going to be awesome.
I am definitely looking forward to it. I'm glad that we're kind of riding the ship and getting back on to regular releases and things. Speaking of regular releases, I just want to go ahead and throw the disclaimer out there that I'm back. I got a little bit of not a lot, but I got a little bit of a tan. I got a little sun.
Nice.
I spent the past week at the beach down in Fort Morgan, Alabama, and a lot of time out in the sun, a lot of time to relax, spend time with the family, enjoyed the heck out of that. Wish I didn't have to come back just as quick as we did, but whatever. I'm definitely blessed to have been able to carve out time and spend a week away with the family there.
That sounds awesome.
I did travel to Tennessee State right before, so I was off work Friday, went up to Knoxville for the tournament, left Saturday afternoon, got home at like 10 o'clock at night, and immediately loaded up to go to the beach Saturday night. And we stayed until we left yesterday to come back home. So we had a lot of travel in the last week, but a lot of relaxation. So I am recording this though a little bit. I don't know what the word is. A little bit in a bit of a rush. Mentally at least. I haven't given a lot of thought to the things that we're going to talk about on the podcast. So you're going to catch me flying from the hip a lot here. Yeah. I did make an outline, so we do have something to keep us on schedule. But as far as like thought concepts to things that we're going to talk about, a lot of times we kind of pre-think about what we're going to talk about so that we can speak a little more intelligently. We didn't do that this week, or I didn't. So, Jake, I'm hoping you bring it home for us. But that's what we have. That's what I've had going on the past week. I guess the week before that, since there's been 2 weeks since the last episode, was kind of boring in comparison to that one. But what's the last 2 weeks been like for you, Jake?
The last 2 weeks, this last week we had a garage sale because we're prepping to switch apartments. We're going to be doing that this week. So we had a garage sale to get rid of a bunch of stuff so we don't have to have... My wife is a couponer, so she's got tons of like laundry detergent and candles and all sorts of stuff to sell to people. And she's really good at finding deals online. So she got a ton of stuff. So we sold a ton of that, made some good money. I think that money will help us go to nationals too because money is tight. But like she made a ton of money for us. She did a great job. I went out and put signs everywhere. So that's always the fun stuff, the man stuff for the garage. So I get the signs. Yeah. You do the actual inventory and everything. So that was always cool. So, but yeah, like otherwise it's been a bit of a calm before the storm. We got moving and London mission trip coming up soon. So everything is about to go crazy. And we also had a basketball tournament at my church for the youth, and the 3v3, like the final game was recorded right in front of a security camera. Like it was a fadeaway 3-pointer to win the game. And we actually got that on video, and it's super sick. Like, cause the security cam picked it up, and it was so fun. So not an insane week, but just a lot of small things. And we're getting ready for a huge storm of events coming up all the way to nationals.
Okay. So I've got two things. First of all,
yeah,
who shot the shot? Was it, is there any chance it was you?
No, because I was doing the announcement. I was on the speaker
okay.
megahorn, and there's Jacob Hall. He's a great player. He's a great kid from our church, and he just did this fadeaway three. Like the guy that was on him was guarding him like straight up, like he had like no room. He just did this fadeaway three, banked it off the backboard. It was amazing from the corner. It was amazing.
He hit the Jaylen Brown on him. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay. The second thing is you mentioned finances being tight and you getting a little bit of a reprieve with selling some of that stuff.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned us going to nationals. So have you gotten to the 100% commitment yet?
I'd say like 98.5. Like we need to actually like put pen and paper and buy the plane tickets because we want to do Michigan, and then we're actually want to go to. She wants to see some Illinois and Chicago. So there's a plan. We're turning like first half is my tournament, and the second half is us doing like just vacation-y stuff up there. So she's got friends up there. So all we have to do is just make sure like we're not completely in the red from this, and it looks like we'll be good. So fingers crossed, God willing, we're looking 99% there. So I just need to get the tickets now.
That's awesome. So that's definitely good news. Great news, actually. But it's also cool that you're going to be able to find a way to travel with her and her get some benefit out of it versus, hey, come with me to hang out with a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, she loves traveling. So like it's a good excuse. Like we're kind of traveling, and then we get to like she gets to look around the town while I'm playing the tournament. That's what she did in Tennessee, Knoxville, last year. Like she just went around the town, like exploring Knoxville and going to the college and going to bookstores and everything. And then, so she does that the first half. And then after that, we go around and doing whatever she wants, just sightseeing. It's cool.
That is something that I do not recall. Like, I don't guess I met her at nationals.
I think she only came out to pick me up. Like, I don't know if she came to the building. So yeah.
Okay. I was going to say, I don't remember that, but it's kind of cool seeing people that come into Redemption and then are able to bring their wives as, you know, supportive figures in their life for it. For those that can and aren't, I guess, getting hit over the head with a frying pan because of it. You got like two different types. Like my wife supports me, but she ain't going to be caught dead around a Redemption tournament. And you know what? That's okay. That's okay. Yeah. Our love language is the fact that she lets me go and then I, do whatever she wants on the other side of it. But definitely cool. Now, I would like to, before we jump into the heart of this episode, I would like to just kind of give you an idea of what we're expecting on this episode. So we are not doing Deck of the Week this week just because I didn't have time. And I guess we didn't make a plan to do it beforehand to grab a deck and kind of have that planned out. So I didn't want to give a rushed thing, but also it frees up a little bit more time within the allotted time for Agur the Creator segment, which is also going to be, I guess we can call it Tyler the Creator this week.
Yes.
Because we are going to have Tyler Stevens join us for that segment. So we'll have a little bit more time to expound on card design principles and philosophy, and then maybe have him rate some cards. I don't know what we're going to do. I'll give you bonus points though, Jake, if you can squeeze out any type of spoiler information from
bonus
Mr.
points.
Stevens.
Oh yeah, like okay, let's do this. Okay.
He likes to pride himself that he doesn't let go of a bunch of information, but I think we might can get to him if we work hard at it. So.
Yeah, we can give him some truth serum too.
That'll definitely do the trick. I don't know how we're going to do that remotely, but hey, the internet's a strange place. Exactly. But we do have that coming up. And then we've got a ton of tournament results. I'm talking about this might be the most active tournament 2-week period that we've ever had on the podcast. We had at least 3 state tournaments. There was a regional tournament. There was...
Too far away.
Yeah, there was both Lackey Grand Prix and the Zoom Discord, I guess, in session because that's an ongoing thing. But both of them were active. So we had games all over the place, and we've got results. We've got a new power rankings with some familiar faces coming back to it, some new faces on the list. Oh, well, at least one new face that feels like he should have already been on the list before, but he's there now. So definitely looking forward to going over that with you. I'm not sure yet at the time of recording at this moment. I am not sure yet on the community mailbag because I am open to doing that segment. I actually plan to do that segment, but you guys, as of now, have not dropped any questions in there since the last episode. So we're recording this just to break the fourth wall. You know, it's a tradition. We have to break the fourth wall down.
Yeah.
You know, it's like Chris Jericho, break the walls down. We have a couple of days. So this is Sunday night that we're recording this part of the podcast. And then we have plans to record on Monday night to finish up the episode. And that's where we were planning on doing the community mailbag. So tomorrow or either later tonight, I'm going to drop that link and we'll see. We'll see how you guys respond as a community. If you drop in community mailbag questions, then we will definitely do that. If not, then we'll just table that until the next episode. And again, we're going to make up a lot of that time that we're going to be missing for Deck of the Week and potentially for the community mailbag with Tyler Stevens on deck design and things. You know, him being the lead card designer for the new sets and things. Be a good chance to just have a conversation with him. But that is all I have for previewing the episode. But before we jump into it, I do want to remind you that our podcast is sponsored, Jake. Who's it sponsored by?
Oh, who is it? Oh, man, it's on the tip of my tongue. We didn't say it a lot last week, so it's just not. It's not on the top of. It can't be Your Turn Games, can it?
You know what? That does sound familiar. It used to be somebody else, but now I think it is Your Turn Games. So Your Turn Games is sponsoring this episode, and we definitely want to thank them. Just want to let you know at the top because we are super proud to be in partnership with them. Mm-hmm. But as far as this episode goes, we're ready to get it started, and we will hit you with the recent news and happenings.
Let's
right now.
Go.
Sit back and relax while we get you caught up on all the latest news and notes from around the game and the community.
All right. And the most important thing that I can tell you about at this hour, and I keep saying that because it's moving quick, is the road to nationals is upon us. We are firmly on it with all the tournament results we've got for this episode. We've got regionals coming up in a couple of different areas next episode that we'll have results for. We'll go over all that later, but all of this is progressing us towards the 30th national tournament for Redemption. And that's going to be August 1st through 3rd. Jake, we're 29 days away at the time of release.
29 days. I got to get tickets.
29 days away, okay? And this is going to be in Allendale, Michigan, at Allendale Baptist Church. So it's super easy to remember. You remember the city, you remember the church, or if you remember the church, you remember the city. Super easy. But we're going to be hosted by Jay Chambers and Ron Sias. Jay Chambers is going to be traveling there to help host. It is at Ron Sias's home church. So
that's awesome.
We have that. We will have a new set, which is Israel's Inheritance, to complete the Israel block of sets. It started with these new starter decks. Then we had Israel's Rebellion, and now we have Israel's Inheritance. And so that will be debuting there. There is a side event we mentioned last episode, but I just want to spotlight it again so that there's no excuse for you guys out there to not have all of the information. But it's going to be a side event on Wednesday. That is the day before festivities start for nationals. Usually people get in the day before, and then they're ready to, they're headstrong, ready to rock and roll Thursday morning as we start. Usually it's booster draft there in Type 2. I believe that is the schedule for this nationals as well. But on Wednesday, if you get in early enough, there's going to be a side event at Primeval Games in Kentwood, Michigan. Now, Kentwood is different than Allendale, so it's a city away. It's 32 minutes, according to Google, from the host church. I think that's doable for most people if you have a mode of transportation. 32 minutes might be a little much for like Uber or whatever, but hopefully you can pick up a ride or whatever.
For a bike.
Yeah. The side event is going to feature the format for it is going to be classic, which is all cards in the catalog of Redemption except for cards that have been banned from competitive play. So no Lioner, no Samuel from whatever set that is, no Cloud of Witness Daniel, no Ephesian Widow, all the stuff that's been banned. And if you don't have that, then you can find a list somewhere, ask someone, we can get that for you.
Yeah.
But pretty much all cards, so you can play something that isn't allowed in the current format of rotation. If
You can
just
play
want
the
to play
old
something fun,
negate the soul. There you go.
yeah, you could do that. The tournament does start at 6 p.m. sharp. Deck check is 5 to 5:45. Gameplay starting at 6. The winner is going to earn a seat in the Mr. Classic tournament. And the last episode, I told you guys that it was later in the year. I assumed that had been made or at least tentatively planned. I don't know where I picked that information up unless it was on the pre-registration form. I'm not accusing anyone else, but I did check with Jeremy Chambers, who is one of the Chamber brothers that host the event. And he said it has not been determined at what time it will be, although they are leaning to a little bit earlier in the year than March. So they don't have a location. They don't have a time set yet. As that information becomes available and is planned in, I guess, concrete form to where it's rock solid information, we'll bring that to you. But I just want to correct that since I did say that on the last episode. But you can pre-register for nationals, and then you can also give your information if you're going to be available to play in this tournament.
Is there anything that they get for pre-registering?
Yes, if you pre-register, you get a couple of things. So if you're in the first 100 to pre-register, we found out last week, right before we recorded, you're going to be getting 2 wooden tokens that say negated on them, so that you can place them on cards that have been negated.
This is negated Nats 2024, if I remember correctly.
Yep, it does have Nats 2024, so there is going to be 200 of these tokens made. I checked with Zach. The Zombie is his screen name. Zach is his real, I guess, government name. But I checked with him, and he did say that he was making 200 of these and only 200 of these with the 2024 Nats text on them. So if you're one of the first 100 to pre-register, you'll get 2 of these. So that's 2 times 100, 200 of them. So if you want more,
how many of these do you want?
I wouldn't mind 6 to 8 of them.
Nice.
But we're saying that the quantity is limited to 200, so you have that as you barter and try to pick up and trade and maybe purchase additional tokens or whatever. I'm not setting the market here, but I would be willing to make some wheeling and dealing deals to try to get some more.
Like this.
But also, if you pre-register, you'll be entered into a drawing for some custom sleeves.
Those look sick, bro.
Yes, and we've seen at least one of them, which features artwork from a brand new card. And that brand new card will be reviewed later on in the spoilers, but I don't want to give information here if someone is trying to protect themselves from spoilers. We've got that section. We hit the disclaimer right at the front, and then we talk all about it. So just wait a few minutes in the episode. We'll get there. But there are sleeves available, and this is going to be like a random drawing, I believe. So if you're pre-registered, you're in that drawing. And these custom sleeves are featuring artwork from the new set, Israel's Inheritance, the II set.
Aye, Captain.
Can't get away from it, can you? So that's going to move us right into the community content. And we'll start with Baboony Tim. You want to go over that, Jake?
Yeah. So we have 4 videos from Baboony Tim this week. We start off with a Nativity versus Angel Thieves. This is LGP 16 round 3 versus Flooded Red. I got to hear some of it. I didn't get to watch all of it, but it sounded like a really interesting game, really fun game there. Really good one. He also had a Herod versus Herod's game. I got to watch that, or at least watch most of that. That was his match versus Gilball. Again, Gilball had a bit of a slow start, but some pretty interesting stuff there. Then he had Baboony Builds, and this is a really cool video. If you care about like mathematics, you care about like the nitty gritty, the really crunchy parts of gaming. This is the type of video for you.
Hypergeometric calculators.
Exactly. And this is even beyond that, right? How many cards will Matthew draw on average is the video. And it's really cool. He's got this program set up. He shows you how to use it, how to set it up yourself. It's a lot of code. So I just have him do it for me right now. But he's like, if you use it too much, I'm just going to make you learn to do this coding stuff. But he shows you how to go through it. And he basically says your deck has a Matthew rating based on this, and it'll spit out your deck is Matthew's expected to draw 5.7 cards. Your deck, Matthew's expected to draw 7.3 cards. Your deck, Matthew's expected to draw 4.2 cards on average. And he can also calculate if your Crowded Soul is out, what that changes the odds. It's really cool. Really cool. He could even weight how often the Crowded Soul turns on. Like, say he can turn on Crowded Soul, but say 40% of the time it doesn't work because they have a Son of God, they have a 3 woes, they have something to stop it. Like, we'll count it off for 40% of the time. So it's really cool. He's got an amazing setup there. So check out Baboni Bill's thing on that. And he's also got this really cool video, his inheritance and spoiler, but we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah, I think it was really cool him getting to spoil a new spoiler, like completely out of, like, I didn't know to expect it or anything. Video dropped, spoiler, here you go. But not to start a long conversation here and go down a rabbit trail, but you mentioned this new redemption simulator, so to speak, to where it can see what Matthew is going to see in your opening hand on average, which is a really good tool for the current meta because Matthew is so prevalent in the current meta. And I believe maybe the next set will start to push us a little bit more into mono brigade, less multi-brigade stuff, as they have a second set that is geared towards, solo brigade enhancements and characters and stuff. But right now he's still very prevalent in the meta. What do you think? And again, not to get sidetracked forever, but you mentioned 5.7. That's a really high draw to Matthew on average, because sometimes he's going to hit 6, 7. Sometimes he might only hit 3, 4, but he's a healthy almost 6 cards per look at your hand. What do you think the goal, if you were to use this tool and say, I'm trying to get my deck down to a goal of no more than this number for the draw, what do you think that number breaks at for Matthew?
Yeah, I think I've honestly built a deck where he's supposed to draw 3 or 3.1, 3.2, like really slow. But like for your average deck, like that's really constrictive to just force it down to 3. I think for an average deck, you should be happy with around 4.5, 4.6, 4.7. As you approach like 5 and higher, like even low 5s might be good. But like if you're over 5.5 and you don't have Crowd Soul, you could be in for a beating out from Matthew if you don't have a ton of ways to stop him. Like you could do crowds, you could do our new favorite dominant, Guardian of Your Souls, to try to mess him up and force him to have to use a reveal dominant and stay on his purple side. But if you're at a high Matthew count and you don't have Herdsman, you don't have a lot of ways to stop him, you could be in a lot of trouble. So just be very careful with Matthew. Like he's there to counter splash, and a lot of decks are splashing. So like even the Nativity deck has just a ton of splash just from random cards in it. Like Gabriel has green, Simeon has green, Zechariah has teal. Like lots of random cards have random brigades on it. So always be careful of that.
I think that's a definitely interesting thing, because you can build a strong deck and try to minimize it and stay around probably that number, approaching, between 4 and 5 cards that they're going to draw. But you could get really restrictive and be like, okay, Matthew's not drawing more than 2 cards against me at any time. But then you build your deck in a way that you sacrifice a little bit of the power that comes from splashing to limit Matthew. And then where does that fall on the balance chart of being able to compete with a GOC style offense that features Matthew?
Yeah.
And I don't know where all that goes, but it definitely opens up interesting conversation points and deck building thoughts. And, each person has their own like strategy of how to deal with Matthew. And some people's strategy so far has just been like, Matthew's going to do what Matthew does and I'm going to do what I do.
Exactly.
And I don't know. We'll see. Like, I feel like Nationals is going to bring us a little bit more clarity on what the impact of Matthew is on the meta as a whole, because different pockets of the country, some people may be playing to where like, hey, we got a bro code where we're not even playing Matthew or whatnot, or we're not playing Nazareth. And then Nazareth might shut down, if it becomes more popular at Nationals than it is just randomly in thought here in the meta building up to Nationals. Like it might also restrict Matthew if they go second and there's a Nazareth down and they can't use their angels to go and search him out. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what decks, like what that break number is or that average number is that they're going to yield to Matthew, and then see how the impact of Matthew is against the meta.
Yeah.
With as much as like we've had another year to figure out how to use Matthew, we've had another year to figure out how to work around him or gain benefits around him. Like everybody's got the Herdsman package just about in some deck that they've played, so that they know Matthew comes out, I go Herdsman, I get the same benefit potentially more if it's later in the game because I get to take from the reserve. But just a lot of interesting conversations that this video opens up and having that tool available to us.
It's super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in addition to Baboony Tim and his current content, I mentioned it last episode, and I just want to throw it out there. He does have that primer video for all of the information for Nationals. So if you want to get all that information in one place, you can go and check out that video on his YouTube page as well. Or YouTube channel, I guess I'm an old head if I call it a page.
And he's also got the video about how to fight Matthew too. So lots of material from Baboony on Matthew in the current meta. It's really cool.
Yeah. Baboony hates Matthew. That's a video.
I'm on the ban Matthew 2025 train myself.
Okay, well, probably got a better luck there than having a fair election.
Yeah. Wow.
We're not getting political. I'm sorry. And then we got Tyler Talks. Tyler Talks has 2 videos out this week, and one of them is Priest Love Honey 2. Mm-hmm. And this is obviously in reference to Honey Pot, which is a deck that revolves around Holy of Holies and then Pot of Mana to restrict you from having more than one character in battle, but then also negating characters. And obviously they're trying to have CBN characters with the guy from Persecuted Church, Eliezer. Yeah, sure. But that video is set up to show that you can build a priest offense that features those cards as well and works around them. So you also, in addition to that, I guess you would have the benefit, instead of using mostly wilderness heroes, you could also potentially use, well, I guess no, because if you're using those cards, you're probably featuring the other glory, but if the opponent plays or is planning on playing the glory of the Lord in dominant, that's going to restrict you from playing except for on your lone priest. Well, guess what? Hey, you're set up for lone priest. So you're all ready for that. But then he also has a video called Peace in Bethany, and this is using Bethany Trio and a few other characters. I think Watchful Servant is in there. I believe that's the one.
Yeah, so Peace in Bethany, yeah, it's all about Watchful Servant, because he can name Jerusalem, and there's a ton of Jerusalem characters. A lot of the Bethany heroes, a lot of the Empty Tomb characters are Jerusalem. So, like, he just moves in and, like, think about this. That guy, Watchful Servant into the Bethany Trio, that's a really hard block. Like, there are ways out of it, but there's a lot of blocks that just can't handle that. Restricting evil dominance, negating evil cards, negating characters in territory, protecting the band, and protecting the character from attacks. Like, there's a lot of hoops you got to jump through to block that. So it's a really good block and really good attack, and there's a lot of good attacks in that deck there. Peace in Bethany was a really cool video.
Not to mention the fact that Peace is in the deck, and you know your boy loves Peace, so
yes,
that's always good too.
Yeah, and that's cool thing. Yeah, so yeah, Watchful with Peace on, and he bans to Bethany Trio. That's a really strong attack. Really fun.
It's darn near insane, actually, if you can get it quickly in the game to where you start affecting. Mm-hmm. Obviously, most of these decks, though, not to go back to Baboony Tim's content with the Matthew stuff, but a lot of them is, it feels like you want to be able to set up quickly if you go first, because you're assuming your opponent's going to get some kind of massive hand advantage to start out. And if you go second with a lot of decks that have a lot of moving pieces, then potentially they have hurdles set out because they had such a big draw when they went first. So it all kind of works hand in hand, figuring out where you can go with your deck while also having to balance out with what you're expecting to play against. So just a good tie-in there. But don't forget, we do have our boy Jaden, who does put out videos still. He's somehow moved to third in our list here. I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't know why Jake did that when he came over. But you want to go over what he's got?
Yeah, so he's got his first video. It's like Honey Pot but blue, and that was his LGP 16 round 2 versus Jay. So I forgot about how that one went, but I remember it was being really interesting there. And then I remember his Gospel Good Stuff at Home, LGP 16 round 3 versus Chad See the Tree. And he brought a white offense with a gray defense looking to play some Romans Destroy Jerusalem. It reminded me of my Ruth Destroys Jerusalem deck. It's like a white offense meant to, Old Testament offense that's like, it's not as good as GOC, but it's Old Testament, so it doesn't blow up when you play our Romans Destroy Jerusalem, and it's still pretty good. Like, there's a lot of good stuff in there. So he's got a really powerful deck. And honestly, like, I would not be surprised to see Romans Destroy Jerusalem do well at Nats. Like it is a dark horse, I think, like, because you kind of want to be playing a New Testament offense, but if you're not, and if you can bring some Romans Destroy Jerusalem, you could really catch the people off guard, I think, especially the duplicity into a Romans Destroy Jerusalem, something like that. Like, you could really make some people really hate on turn when they put all their heroes out. They're like, I got everything down. And you're like, I'll negate your Herod's temple. Let's blow everything up with Romans Destroy Jerusalem. Like, no, I don't have any heroes left in my deck type thing. So I could really see that going crazy.
I think me and you should have a conversation at some point in the next couple of episodes before Nationals happens. It's sneaking up on us, but I think that we need to come up with a term for these type of cards. But there's cards that obviously they're viable cards. They're really good cards, but people aren't playing them as much right now. And then as soon as like people go to build that Nats deck, they're going to slide these handful of cards in, and you're going to see them in a lot more, I guess, high numbers across like average decks than you do now. Like, there's not a ton of people, even though it's still a really good card, there's not a ton of people playing Confusion of Mind right now that I have seen.
Yeah.
So
no, there's not.
It's a really good card, but people have, I want to run stocks. I want to run 20 shekels. I want to run these cool new artifacts that take up my art slot. Mm-hmm. But then there's going to be a lot of people that I think peel back and go to the bread and butter, something that is just, lock, stock, and barrel. It's ready to rock and roll, and I don't have to do anything. It doesn't get negated easily. And they would rather dedicate that art slot to something more potent as far as affecting the opponent. And I don't know what we call these cards, but I feel like there's a handful of cards that fit that. Romans Destroy Jerusalem feels like it could be another one. You're not seeing a ton of it right now, but when Nationals comes around, you could see it slid into, I don't know, 30% of reserves, because people are just expecting to play against GOC offenses and they want to have an answer for that. So it'd be cool for us to try to put together a list of these type of cards of, I don't know what we call them again, but yes. And cards that would impact the Nationals meta that isn't necessarily drastically impacting the road to Nationals meta.
Yeah.
So I feel like a lot of people try to play something at Nationals that kind of comes out of left field. They make their, what do they call it, meta calls. Like, I think the meta is going to shift right here, and I'm going to pivot this way, and this is going to be my answer.
The meta is going to zag, but I'm going to zig, and it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I think that little intricate gamesmanship right there of like, what the meta is, what it's defined as for the tournament season, but what's it going to be at Nationals. I think that's really one of the more interesting things about our game. But anyway, I guess that will bring us to the next thing for recent news, and it's been out for a little while, but we're still going to call it recent news. We're going to spotlight the fact that Your Turn Games is still doing pre-orders for the new set, Israel's Inheritance.
Let's go, man.
So
Captain.
I think this set is going to be awesome. We've seen some new artwork for the game. We've seen some new abilities for this set. I think this set has a lot of mystique and flair around it at the same time. Like, we mentioned that some of the cards we've seen are a little weaker, but there have been some cards that have some strong abilities. And then you have all the cool artwork for the Warriors. I think the Warriors theme could be one of the best looking themes in the game really with cool, their artwork. Man. So I'm super excited about that aspect of it. But if you want to get your hands on these cards before they start having supply issues because people's buying a lot of them, if we end up running into that, go ahead and pre-order. You don't have to worry about it. Pay for it now. You can have a couple months to do chores around the house to pay off your wife and the fact that you spent money on cardboard, because, I mean, we do have to justify sometimes we're spending all this money on literal pieces of paper and card stock, but you go ahead and buy it now. You got time to work it off. And then you get the benefit of, now here it is. Andy's shipping it, because I guarantee you, as soon as he gets it from Rob, it's going to be turned around in the mail and shipping to the people that have pre-orders. And you want to have your name on the list, go ahead and do it now.
The art's amazing. They're going to understand immediately once they see this art from the new set.
But we're talking about the new set. It's a great time to go ahead and transition. So we're going to go ahead and play our disclaimer here, and then we're going to talk about some new cards for the set that's come out.
Let's go.
The following segment contains spoilers that may or may not have been approved by the Royal Order for the Secrecy of Expansion Sets. Proceed with caution.
All right, now that we are under the cloak of spoiler anonymity, I guess, or whatever, you can't get mad at us if you know about something that we talk about in this segment. We can now talk about 3 new cards that were spoiled this past week, or 2-week period. I believe there's one that we want to talk about more than the others.
Yeah.
But all 3 seem cool in some regard. And I guess we did poke fun at the card designers and elders and say, hey, we needed you to step it up a little bit.
Yeah.
So they gave us a little bit, I guess, better abilities. There's no 12 Jordan Stones this week. There's 3 cards that have some cool concept abilities here.
They dropped this character on us like, are you not entertained?
Yes.
Okay.
Full on Russell Crowe.
I see where you're going here.
But we've got, the first one is Told Before Truth. This is a mono green good enhancement. 5-1 are the numbers. And the ability on this says, you may shuffle an evil or neutral card. Okay. Doesn't seem that great since it's not territory class. But here's the cool part. Hero may ban to an OT Prophet from deck or reserve.
Very fancy, very nice.
I think being able to ban from reserve is super cool for this card because it lets you take green Prophets and blend them with probably a multitude of things because you can grab it from reserve. You can grab an Angel from reserve that's a Prophet. Well, I mean, I don't know how many of those are going to have those identifiers since it is OT, but I believe there's at least a couple that have that. And then you could go to, like, one of the first things I went to was you could go to King David, or David, what is it, Outcast Refuge, ban to him, and then he can ban to another warrior, though, from reserve, so you can chain 2 warriors out of reserve and give it, like, a purple splash, but you don't have to run that in your deck in order to have it in play. So it protects it a little bit from Matthew seeing it in your hand. I mean, I guess there's just a cool, thought or a freelance ability to think about what you could do with this card, being able to ban from reserve from a mono brigade enhancement. It does stink that it's not territory class because it would have been cool for it to be territory class and be able to shuffle an evil or neutral card.
Yeah. That would have been really cool.
And then you have to choose whether you're going to use it in battle for the banned ability, but all of this ability happens in battle. But I think this is still an interesting card, at least in concept and theory, because it allows me to think about different ways to use it, what I could ban to. But what do you think about this card, Jake?
Yeah, and I think you hit on the hammer here. Like, I think it could be a territory class card without being broken. It would just be good, really good, insane, like, as a territory. But I don't think it would be overpowered. It would just be powered, I'd say. Generally, like, I'd rate this card as, like, this might be a card that finds its a spot as your final enhancement. This is not a card that you're like, this is the best enhancement I have in my deck. Like, this is just going to be at best a role player, and it could be a good role player at that. One thing I look about for enhancements is it slow or fast? And when I mean fast, I mean you can play it during special initiative. You cannot play this card during special initiative. No matter what type of special initiative is caused, you have to have initiative to play this card. So you either have to have a card that says play an enhancement, or you have to have numbers disadvantage, or at least be in a tie to play this card in the first place. So that's a strike against it for me. And then the other part is just like, there's no CBI, there's no CBP, no CBN on this card. That's a downside. So the effect has to be amazing. And the effect is just good, right? It's a good effect, right? Shuffling an evil or neutral card. There's no targeting restrictions. So you go to reserve, you go to territory, you go to battle, any of those things. That's good. And then the hero may ban to an ultimate prophet from deck or reserve. Like you said, that's really good because, like, it's not only banding, but it's finding the card you're banding to. That's a really good effect there. So it's a good effect. No modifiers. No negates or no interrupt the battle on it means it's a bit like it's a slower card. I think it could be a role player in your deck. It's definitely a good draft. Like, I'm gonna be if I'm at a green deck, I'm happy to run this card because it'll let me fetch up my best prophet from deck, my bomb prophet, my etc. Like, they ban to that card from deck or reserve. I like this card a lot, but I'm not like this is the most important card in the set. This is like a role player, I'd say, if it's going to be so.
On a scale of 0 to 10, what are you giving this card?
I'm going to give this card like a 5.5 or a 6.
Okay, I was thinking a 6 on that scale. Okay, so we're kind of in unison on that. Like if it was territory class, I think it gets bumped.
Exactly. It's not philosophy. It's not Tennis Kill the Sun. It's not Amazing Faith. It's just a card that might be the one that like fits your deck. Like this actually fits my deck because I need to get this profit out. Like it's just not like the most impressive card.
I guess another thing I think about on this one, not to spend too much time on this one card, but Moses from IR can go and grab a green or white enhancement. So turn 2, it could go and get the best thing you have in your reserve to ban 2, or it could go turn 1 and get the best thing you have in your deck to ban 2. So you could see a deck that's kind of like, there was like a fringe deck. I think Chad called it like Blue's Clues. He was blending blue and green last tournament season in order to get the benefit of having green with Jeremiah and some other cards with the setup power of blue. You could use technically Moses to go and get this, grab Abraham and start a potential chain, grabbing him from your deck, and then he grabs other things from your deck. So you could have a big setup just having the easy access to Moses and getting him set up with Dreadlaw Soul, Pharaoh's Daughter, all those things. And that's just blue. You could also then go take it into royalty with David and potentially some other cards that have profit on them.
Sure.
You could take it to a couple of different priests that are also prophets. So like, I think being able to leverage that new Moses into this card to potentially, he's going to probably get initiative at some point, play this down and then chain a couple of other abilities in battle is kind of cool in theory, at least. So I think even though it's a 6 on the power level, this is one card that like, I'd be interested to see how it plays out once it's out and you can pair it with things that are coming with it, but also using like that Moses package to set up something else. Because I believe at one point we were asking ourselves, what's the best thing you can do with almost a guaranteed turn 1 Moses? And a lot of people started off with like Numerous as the Stars and other things. And then you ended up it kind of went back to, grabbing the Wilderness enhancement that helps you set up Wilderness and get that going. But being able to leverage that into some other themes would be kind of cool.
Definitely.
So I'll shut up about that one and I'll let you take the next one. And this one is the one that our boy Baboony Tim was able to spoil for us. So take it away here.
Yeah, so we got a 4/2 black enhancement called Inhabiting the Land. Now this card is I'll talk about this later. I'll just give you the text right now. Interrupt the battle. You may give your evil Canaanite to opponent's territory to discard a good card. And there's more. Capture a hero in battle. So we got a banger of a card here. This is like Tenants Kill the Sun 2.0 for Canaanites. This thing is pretty spicy here. I'm loving this card. Just some quick notes. As we talked about, Told Before Truth is a slow card. This is a fast card. Interrupt the battle will get you out of a lot of SIs. Not all of them. There are some SIs that interrupt the battle does not get you out of, but it gets you out of most SIs. So special initiative, you get to play this card. And you get to give away one of your evil Canaanites. Obviously, that's what the theme is trying to do anyways. Hopefully, like, there's the downside that you have to have one of those ready. But if you do have an evil Canaanite to give to your opponent's territory, you get to discard a good card and you get to capture a hero in battle. That's all under the umbrella of Interrupt the Battle, which means, like, they play a battle winner on you off of two heroes. You take out both heroes. Bop, bop. The battle winner has nowhere to go. It falls off. It's discarded. Like, this card... I expect, if Canaanites is good, I expect to see this card play a lot. And for drafts, you don't even need to have a Canaanite to get some effect. You just do Interrupt the Battle, capture a hero, and Interrupt the Battle, capture a hero in battle. That's still a very good card for draft. Like, that will win some fights just on its own.
Okay, let me ask you, because when I read this card, this is the first thing I thought of. And I'm probably missing something that kind of is how it is. You think, your eyes get really big and you're like, I can do this. And then you check into a couple things. You ask Marcus something and you realize it doesn't quite work the way you initially thought it might. Interrupt the battle. Okay. So I'm blocking with a solo Canaanite against a solo rescuer. If I interrupt the battle and give my Canaanite in battle to them to then discard their good card. I've given them SI, but I guess that plays out, and they get a chance to negate it. But then the capture a hero in battle would also happen. So from one action, you can potentially chain 2 special initiative instances. Or is it because it's the same card? If they don't answer the second, if they don't stop the second from activating, does it just happen without another case of SI?
So the first SI would need to have an interrupt on this card. So if they interrupt this card, then the rest of the card doesn't happen anyways. So unless it reactivates later. But the point is, if they get out of the first SI, that means they've negated that card. So maybe you negate it later and y'all go back into another negate fight after that. But there's no real way to have this card generate 2 SIs on it in a natural state. I think there's some fringe cases, but there's no standard ways that this card
fringe is what we're living for here.
Yeah, exactly right. We're living for the fringe. I think the only way I can think that you could possibly get 2 SIs out of this card is if you...
Let me give you a scenario and you tell me how you interpret it. Okay, I play Inhabiting the Land and give my Canaanite that's in battle to my opponent's territory to capture his, let's just say, solo Matthew. Okay, so he plays something to negate it, but it does not remove the card. So then after the negate, this card is obviously not active at that point because it's been stopped.
Yeah.
If you woes his negate, does the capture happen or does it not? And then if he's already had SI on this one card, does the same card give him another case of SI?
So your example doesn't work because it would go back to the discard first. So the discard would reactivate again. The giving would reactivate, the discard would reactivate, and then the capture hero in battle would. So I think the only way to make it to be like you're wanting to be is if you play this card and they play interrupt the battle, protect hero from discard effects. I think that might work because then it would protect it from discard, but then you can target it with capture hero in battle, and capture hero in battle would go through that. And I don't think you can get 2 SIs off the same card without having that card be negated. So I think that, yeah, but that's very rare. I can't even think of a situation where that'd be happening.
Right, but the fun part is seeing an ability and trying to make it work in a weird way.
Well, let me tell you the really fun part. So Jaden was like, dude, what if we just interrupt the battle, we give away our lone blocker, and then the card is discarded by game rule, so they can't target it for a negate. And if it worked that way, that would be a really hard block because you'd get 2 characters out, and they would be able... when a card removes itself from the game, you can target it. But when a card is discarded by game rule, it's very hard to target in those situations. But the problem with that is cards don't get discarded to game rule during the middle of effects. So Inhabiting the Land would still be floating around with no user while you did that. And it would still be negatable. So we were like, oh, is this going to be the coolest new block? And Tyler's like, what did you find? What did you do? And Marcus like, no, it doesn't work like that, bro.
Yeah, I think I picked up on some of that conversation. But just the fact that it's kind of like Tenant's Kill the Sun can band and then discard. And if you band it to somebody that just had an ability to discard, you're chaining the same card, kind of giving away 2 outs to a potential lone hero. And it'd be cool to find a way to where it's oh, well, you got SI on the first ability, but not the second ability. But that obviously is probably a little too strong. But this is still an interesting card just for the fact that I like black. Black is one of the brigades that I really like because I like Philistines. But interrupt the battle. You already said it. It's a fast card. Even if you're not playing Canaanites and you get this in draft or whatever, capture a hero in battle. Interrupt the battle, capture a hero in battle. Still a good ability, but then you get to add it on. And I think that's kind of a cool way to word this because it makes it an enhancement that can be used by the brigade apart from it. There's no unity on it. There's no X identifier for the theme, but they found a way to build in the theme into the ability, but still have it be a playable card outside of it.
I love those type of cards.
It doesn't feel like, oh, when I get this in draft, it stinks because I'm not going to get enough X identifiers to maximize its ability or whatever. So I think this is a cool card. Scale of 0 to 10. Since it's a battle winner, it's an interrupt the battle. I think it's probably hovering around a 7, something like that. It's a notch maybe above told before truth. I would say it would be higher if there wasn't so many great black enhancements that already interrupt the battle and do something. You know, like tenets. You have not even tenets, but plot to kill is good.
I think this is honestly like in a mono black. I think this is better than plot to kill because it does do that 2 different things. Like you can hit 2 targets. Like one thing that's cool is sometimes people attack you with 3 different heroes, and you'll be like, I'm gonna ping off the 2 important heroes and leave you with like the hero that was kind of just banded in, like that they didn't actually really like. It was just the one that bridged the 2 heroes between them. You're like, oh, I can't actually use the colors of that hero. So like interrupt the battle, picking 2 things off, or picking off something in territory and then picking off their hero. I think it's a really good effect. So I'd give this a 7 or an 8 as an enhancement. At least if Canaanites are good, right? Like this does rely heavily on its Canaanite theming. So if Canaanites are good, this is a card I expect to see a lot of because I like this card. Well, that's what I expect.
Yeah, I guess my rating, saying around a 7, is probably assuming I don't know anything about Canaanites, but just face value of, hey, you have the potential to play it into the Canaanite theme, but either way, interrupt and capture makes it playable as is. But I think there might also be a fringe case where you could give your evil Canaanite to an opponent's territory if you need them to have brigades in territory for some other effect. And you can give them a Foreign Wives, which is 7 brigades. And then maybe, I don't know what you could play off of that.
A lot of cards that count brigades specifically mention your opponent's brigades in the sense of like it needs to be owned and controlled by them. Because I was like, what if you donated like Noah to your opponent and drew a bunch of cards off Messenger Satan or something like that? Like the cards require it to be actually their card instead of just doing it.
Own and control is definitely in most of those. I just wonder if there's like some outlier of like, oh, you actually can get some kind of benefit here. Based on brigades in opponent's territory or whatever. But you're right that a lot of them are worded your our opponent's brigades cards, or whatever, which requires own and control. But I don't know, just interesting to think of that. And it's hard to think of it in the concept of what we have now for Canaanites because we don't know what's going to be coming out. And Canaanites, let's just be honest, have not really been playable for the last little bit.
Hey, my Canaanite deck is without parallel, you know.
Okay, so I am going to, I will default to you and let you speak first on this card that we have next. We've got
let's go.
One of the coolest looking cards, I think, in a non-full art or borderless, like with just being a standard card, this is probably one of the better looking cards we've ever had in the game. I would say it's up there.
You could make this an ultra rare, put it full art. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. Which, I mean, we need to start our guesses for ultra rares, but we've got it right here in a basic version. So we won't speculate that it might be a ruse and this might be an ultra rare, but it is a strong card. But I'll let you take it away and run with it.
Okay. Purple Brigade, Warrior Class, 10, 12, Benaiah, Lion, Slayer. While alone, negate enhancements, except good weapons, and other characters. CBN if equipped. And this guy has some amazing art fighting a lion with his bare hands. He's just going at it. This is awesome. This is cool. I believe Mark Lake was the one that helped design this card's art. It's really awesome. And this card is pretty spicy here. So we have the while alone, negate enhancements and except good weapons and other characters. That's already pretty good. It's CVN if he's equipped, right? And so you think about that, okay, is that just to prevent enhancements, except good weapons and other characters? So that's what I assume the first time. It's more than that. Because this is while alone, this is a type of negate that Jared's always talking about this, that can turn on and off. He'll actually pulse and interrupt and prevent and negate again every time this is true. So you can actually attack with Benaiah in a band, and he won't be active. But you can have them there, and they kill off the other guys in the band. Benaniah turns on, negating the card that killed off the other guys, bringing them back, like setting things back up again, and then turns himself back off. So you can use other enhancements. So there's a lot of spice to this guy. Obviously, he's intended to be used alone too. So like he's just good at like, let's fight by the numbers. If you don't have any CBB cards or CBN cards, I got weapons that I can use that don't get caught up by this effect. He's already good at that, but he's also got this extra case of like, oh man, if his negate turns on in the middle of battle, it could totally wreck me. This guy is really interesting. I'm interested to see how he actually plays out.
Absolutely. I think this one is one of those case studies that you're like, how good is he? Obviously, we want him to be really good because the artwork is fantastic. I'm glad that Mark had some knowledge or whatever and was able to put this together and then get it to John for some final edits, and they were able to collaborate and bring this artwork to us because it's capturing a ton of action in the still image here, which I think is the best artwork that Redemption has, is where you get a lot of that, like kind of like the Resurrection. I didn't like it at first, but the Ultra Rare Plus version has because it's not centered and my OCD was triggered a little bit, but I yielded to that, and it's my favorite version of that card now because you get the action of Jesus coming out of the tomb, and the lamp that's hanging there is being, moved by the wind, the force or whatever. Not like Star Wars force, but Jesus force. But there's a lot of action in this picture. In the snow, you got that element in there. You got the lion's ready to bite like his right forearm, it looks like, and he's rearing back to hit him with a left hook. There's a lot of action going on. When it comes to the ability, you're right that it's like one of those abilities that like somebody like Jared would like, because it's kind of it takes a little bit to understand it, and then once you understand it, you can kind of put it together a little bit.
No, I understand it. Like by my rules, I still don't understand it in my head how this works. Like, man,
right? That's what I'm saying.
Like,
to conceptualize how you're going to use this ability, I think is a little bit more difficult than just reading the ability and knowing how it works. Like, yes, you can know how it works, but how can you leverage that to your benefit? And one of the things I think is cool with it is potentially finding a way to use like add to battle stuff. If there is a way to do an easy add to battle. Like, I don't know what the wording offhand on like Good Seed is, if it has to be a New Testament.
Good Seed is New Testament.
Okay. But if you had some kind of ability like that, and you could add this guy to battle after. So like they get rid of your stuff with a battle winner, and then you can add him, and then while he's alone, we're negating, and then you get to play something on him. Just kind of like a mini or a weaker version of, what is it, Angel of God for Wilderness, where it comes in and negates stuff, and then you can play something off of it to then continue the battle and try to win it in your favor. Something like that. So I don't know if there's a way to do that, but that would be interesting if there was a way to, okay, you answered my abilities, you got rid of my heroes, I'm going to add this guy to battle. So maybe, I don't know. But I do think it's interesting with the weapons, because we've got all these warriors and they're all like, if equipped and all of this, that means, and we've seen this, I think it was a Dino Spear. There's got to be some more weapons. And then I wonder what some of these weapons are going to do to where, like, is it a potential battle winner to where he can go in, exactly. I'm negating your character, and you present your character while he's negated. And then I can pop this to then put you in special initiative. A lot of theorizing and trying to figure out how to leverage that ability. But definitely awesome artwork. And this was the artwork that we were mentioning at the top of the episode that is on some of those custom card sleeves that you can win from pre-registering for Nationals. And if you haven't pre-registered for Nationals, then what the heck are you waiting for? 30th National Tournament. It's going to be awesome. There's a lot of custom products. And if you get these sleeves, you might have the coldest sleeves in the game.
Definitely. This thing's awesome.
Where do you, just on the spot, where do you put this ability? And we've scale ranked the last two. So 0 to 10, where do you find this one? This one's tough to rank, I believe.
I'm around 8.5 out of 10, maybe 9 out of 10. Like, You're right. Like, it's tough. It depends on the weapons. It depends on like the rule. Like, this is something like you said. Like, it's so hard to conceptualize. Ooh, this turns on in the middle of battle when you didn't expect it to. Like, this is the type of card that you need to actually have experience against and experience playing for to fully like wrap your head around it. Like, there's a lot of cards that like you can read a whole bunch of text. You're like, okay, I see there's text in there, but I need to actually get my head in the game and see this actually go off. So that could think this be 8.5, 9. Yeah, somewhere around there for sure. It could be like an 8, but like it all depends on what type of spice people can throw into a deck around this guy, because he does require some extra pieces, but he's a very, very powerful card, and I'm very interested in seeing how he does.
I am definitely interested in it as well, but I am going to say it's 7 to 7.5. Until you see more, because while alone to get the benefit, I mean, you're already opening yourself up to falling away, and then also Christian Martyr. You also have the ability to kind of run out of weapons if you're using them for other things. So maybe he's not equipped, so he's not gaining CBN status. And like you said, we need to see what some of those weapons do to know how good they're going to be. But I do think his potential is really high. I think obviously he can be much higher than that rating. I'm just saying at face value with what I know now, I would conservatively say around 7.5, with potential to be better. Just because, again,
right.
We're talking
Maybe
about...
I'm caught up in the hype.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm excited for it. I'm as excited as an 8.5 or 9. Yeah. I just, I don't know that like I'm going to get this guy, open him up, and immediately he's going to be one of the best rescues in Warriors. He could be. I just don't know that because I haven't seen the set in context yet. The elders are probably listening. They're like, you idiots, you just don't understand that you can do this, and chain that. And I'm like, well, if you share the stuff with us, we will know.
We also got to see how many CVP and CBN evil cards are going to be coming out, because obviously, like, if there's a decent amount of those, or the decks are still playing those, that's something that he's not useful against. But yeah, especially CBN cards. Like, I don't care if he's pulsing. If my card's CBN, it doesn't matter. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see how this goes. Time will tell. Lions can get destroyed, but yeah,
you could push a Herod against this guy, and it would depend on what the weapon does or whatnot, whether he can win that battle. You know, like a CBP protected dude. Okay, you push him, and you can negate characters all you want, but since you're preventing him and he cannot be prevented, now he's got his protection. Your weapon has to get rid of or go around that protection. So I think it remains to be seen. But definitely cool artwork. I think it's probably the best artwork that I've ever seen on a standard looking card. So obviously some of the alternate border cards were really cool because it incorporated borders into the artwork overall. But I mean, without getting alternate border or any of that special treatment of full art, borderless or anything, I think this is probably some of the best work we've seen in the game.
Agreed.
So I guess that will move us right along to our next segment. And we told you at the top, we've got a ton of tournament results, so we're going to jump right into those.
Let's turn our attention to the most recent tournament results and see where players have stacked up since our last episode.
All right. This is going to be an absolutely loaded segment. So I guess we'll just jump right into it. So I said 3 state tournaments at the beginning, and I was wrong. We actually had 4 state tournaments. So 4 state tournaments and a regionals this past 2-week period since we recorded our last podcast. So we'll start with Pennsylvania State. And this was, I believe, hosted by Robin Dermo. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that's who hosted it. If I misquoted that and someone else hosted it, I'm sorry. Just want to give a shout out to the people that are hosting, because they are allowing people to have these tournaments to go. They're securing venues for these tournaments. So they are very important to the tournament scene. So we'll start with Sealed. In Sealed, we had Peter Wenzel come in first. Raymond Salado came in second. And Andrew Wenzel came in third. In Booster, we had Charles Johnson, Mr. Snake Eyes himself, come in first. Rob Smith, which is Demon Hunter 85, came in second. And his brother, Dave Smith,
Yeah,
which is
Dave.
Smitty Seven Eyes on the boards, came in third.
Those
in
guys are
Type
awesome.
1.
I love them.
They are awesome. And they went back and forth here in Type 1 as well. Rob Smith came in first, Dave Smith second, and then Robin Dermo came in third. And
Go Gamer Dad. Let's go.
Rob Smith and Dave Smith were undefeated, and they tied, so it went to the next tiebreaker for them to.
That's awesome.
I believe they also had matching all soul differentials, so it went to the next tiebreaker after that, and Rob Smith came out on top. Just roll a dice and see which brother wins. Type 2, Charles Johnson came in first. Sean Wenzel came in second, and David Smith came in third. So
3 Wenzels here. This family is a new powerhouse for Redemption.
they've been around for a little while. 4-boy dad, that is him and his 4 sons. So
okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to see it pass on through the generations there. But teams, we had David Smith and Rob Smith come in first, so they settled their differences from Type 1 and paired up and won teams. Sean and David Wenzel came in second, and Charles Johnson and Robin Dermo came in third. And so that will recap. That's the full recap for Pennsylvania State. And I'll let you take it away with the next one, which is Wisconsin State.
Wisconsin State sealed. We have James Courtney, that's Card Game Fanatic, with awesome tokens, getting first place. Elijah Andretti, the Hidden Swift, and Joe Andretti, Joe Mama, pulling in third place there and sealed. For Booster, we got Josh Nitt, Master Q, as 1, James Courtney as 2, and Sean Murphy at 3. And in Type 1, we got Mr. Gilball, Zach Gilball, he crushed it. John Early, Red Dragon Thor coming in second, and Bill Voigt, Every Tribe, coming in third. Sounds like a fun tournament for sure.
The fact that Bill Voigt is here in Type 1 is really cool to see. I think it's also really cool because the first time that someone pointed him out to me, I believe that was in Iowa for nationals. They used the nickname of Wild Bill Voigt. So Wild Bill getting third place here. That's really cool. And anybody with the nickname of Wild Bill, I'm just saying you better watch out. And he was able to take third place here, so it's nice to see.
For anyone who doesn't know him, like what is his claim to fame in the Redemption community besides being wild?
I do believe that he was the one that spearheaded the Type 2 only way back when. And I believe, I hope I'm not misquoting this. I am not a historian of the game quite yet.
Okay.
But I also believe he used to do where they had kind of like, I don't know, like a camp, a mini camp style to where you came, you got your starter deck, you played sealed or whatever. And then by the end of the weekend, you had a full Type 1 deck or whatever because you put stuff together. I believe that was credited to him. I could be absolutely wrong. In fact, I probably am wrong because I'm saying it into the airwaves. So if I'm misquoting, I'm sorry for that. But I do believe he had a pretty strong presence in having or helping have a huge Minnesota following for the game for a while back when the state was really huge. Like at one point, Minnesota was like the hotbed of Redemption. So I think he played a part in that. I'm not sure what all his contributions are, but I believe along those lines are things that he did.
Exciting.
But the next one is Tennessee State, and I will go ahead and let you know that I am doing this from memory because Chris was not able to get me results, and then I was out of town, then he was out of town. I wasn't able to get official results from him because he can't go by memory either because we have old man brain. So if anything turns out to be misquoted, that's my apologies. But this is what I remember for sure, and that is in sealed. We had Booster Jones, Mr. Brian Jones himself, winning that. And Philip Anderson, which is screen name Isaiah 53-6, came in second.
That guy's awesome.
Don't know about third place. So in Booster, I'll just go, who do you think won? Booster Jones. I was able to pull out second. And then Jeremy Chambers came in third. So I did jump Jeremy here. So in Type 1, it was Jeremy Chambers in first, Booster Jones in second, and then I came in third.
Nice, dude.
Playing Nativity, by the way.
Nativity, let's go, bro.
My first in-person tournament with Nativity.
That's awesome.
Type 2 was Jeremy Chambers, and then Chris Fashman.
There we go.
I don't know if they played for a third place, but from memory, this is what I know. I know those are first and second. And then teams, me and Jeremy, and then Chris and Sean Severs from his group. I believe he's Frosty138 on the Discord. So that's the results there for Tennessee State. That's going to bring us to, we were just talking about Minnesota being, in the past being a hotbed. I know that the Allsteads are working to kind of build up a tournament following and try to get a play group started and running once again in their area. And they hosted the Minnesota State tournament. So let you take it away with the results there.
Hey, this guy woke up early. John Early for first place and sealed. Then we got Bill Voigt again at second place and Joe Andretti in third. In booster, we have Jaden Allstad, Joe Andretti, and Jonathan Hansen pulling up third behind them. Type 1, Joe Andretti with the win. John Early was second, and Nathan Voigt, I assume he's related to Bill Voigt, in third place.
Yep, that's his son.
Yeah, that's awesome. Type 2, Jaden Allstead takes it down. Nathan Voigt pulls second, and Justin Allstad pulls in third. In teams, we have Justin Allstad and Jonathan Hansen taking first. Thomas Phipp and Blaze Vidic taking second. And Jaden Allstead, Elijah Andretti pulling in third. Oh, man, looks like the Allstead brothers did not want to team up there. So a bit of sibling rivalries there, huh?
I don't know. I do know that. For Type 1, I'd just like to throw this disclaimer out. I don't know that he would have won, but they had an even number without him, and Justin had already won Iowa State, so he did not play Type 1. And then, obviously, he got third in Type 2, where he did play, but the teams thing, I mean, he came in first place above Jaden, so maybe he got a little bit of the sibling rivalry there, but Jaden did pull out Type 2, which is kind of, I believe that he's gotten the state here. He won Kentucky State. He came in second, I believe, at our regionals. But Jaden's been putting a lot of good finishes together for Type 2, so it would be interesting to see when regionals comes up for them in a little bit. I think it might be actually this coming week for them. And it's hosted by Gabe. I think I have it down here for us to mention later, but it'll be interesting to see Jaden versus Justin there when they're going for the points, because I don't believe either of them have regional points, but they both have state points now, with Justin winning Iowa State. So I think maybe we'll get a little bit of that brother on brother crime going on for that one. And then that's going to bring us to South Central Regional. And I would just like to say that this tournament was in Arkansas. Obviously, a lot of people from Texas went to it. You did not attend this one, but they did pick up some company that wasn't too far away, apparently, from Kentucky, because Mr. Booster Jones went down and he cleaned up. He swept the tournament for the categories he played.
Booster Jones went down to Arkansas. He's looking for a game to steal.
He was looking for some R&RS points to steal. If you get all of them for states and regionals, then no one can jump you, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
But anyway, Booster Jones came in first for sealed. Brandon Barker came in second, and Mark Underwood came in third, which is interesting because Mark Underwood, I believe, is the influence for Brian Jones, at least getting started in Redemption. So that's cool to see awesome there. And then in Booster Jones won. Nika Parker came in second.
That's Aggie's sister. That's awesome.
Yep. She jumped him here, and Marcus got third. In Type 1, Booster Jones won, and then Stephen Brooks came in second. Jonathan Steckman came in third. In Type 2, Brendan Barker won that one, followed by Jamie Collar and Joshua Myers in third. In teams, we got Stephen and Zane Brooks as a team for first place. And then second place was Titus Brooks and Liam Collier. And third was Zeke Brooks and Jacob Johnson.
Nice.
That's 4 states in our regionals since we had our last episode. And one thing that I feel like you can know or realize from that is you heard a lot of similar names. Like we obviously have like the Allsteads. You got to hear John Early mentioned a few times, a stalwart, Brian Jones, Jeremy Chambers, a lot of the Zach Gilball, a lot of the top players in the game doing well at these tournaments. And I mean, they're getting ready. They're ramping up for nationals, which is, again, what did I say? Like 29 days away. Is that what it was at the time of release? So, I mean, it's, if you're wanting to do well at nationals, I mean, look at the deck lists that are being, because a lot of these deck lists are being shared. Mm-hmm. The ones that are winning at states and whatnot, they're being shared on Land of Redemption. So you can go and check that out. But I'm just saying, it seems like the top performers are in peak performance condition heading into nationals. And we also, yes. And with that, we have a couple of, or at least 3 upcoming tournaments that we want to kind of spotlight that are going to give us results. And I believe this might be the last run of official tournaments before nationals.
Yeah, we're getting that close. There's not much time.
So North Central Regionals is going to be July 5th and 6th in North Liberty, Iowa, and hosted by Gabe. And then Midwest Regionals, July 12th and 13th in Litchfield, Michigan. And that's going to be hosted by Jay Chambers. East Central Regionals is going to be July 12th and 13th in Knoxville, Tennessee, hosted by Chris Fashman. So we've got 3 big tournaments left to kind of figure out what the RNRS is going to look like heading into nationals, and to also see kind of what turn some of these decks might take or whatnot. We've seen a healthy flow of information for some of these top decks that are finishing. So maybe we can see some meta shifts and whatnot as we lead into the final hoorah here before nationals. But that is a lot of activity in a short amount of time for official tournaments. Definitely a busy and happening tournament scene for us. But we don't want to forget our friends that are hosting these unofficial tournaments that are also helping provide, information and room for people to get games in and condition themselves for nationals as we head towards that. And that is the Zoom Discord Invitational Series XX, which is Series 20. And the top 3 after week 1, you've got Gilball, Baboony Tim, and the Guardian, Justin Allstead. Mm-hmm. Those are the top 3. And then I do know, I haven't seen a lot of results from this, but I do know that Baboony Tim and Gilball, we mentioned that there was a video for that. So now I'm going to spoil it for you. So if you don't want to be spoiled, mute the podcast for 15 seconds. But Baboony Tim did defeat Gilball 5-0 in their week 2 matchup. So Baboony Tim seems like he's on top of that, on pace to maybe win another Zoom Discord Invitational. And I still contend that Baboony Tim he's better playing with physical cards for whatever reason, or it seems like that. Like he does better in the Zoom Discord, and he does really good at in-person tournaments. And I think all that's going to lead to him having a pretty good level of success at nationals. Be interesting to see. But we also have the Lackey Grand Prix 16. I did not get my game in this past week, so I can't give you any cool information about that. I ended up just conceding to Josh Potratz because I was on vacation. And
oh man, that's like a free win for you, right? Because you always beat Josh.
Yes. Well, I mean, I don't think I've lost to Josh ever. So, but I think I've only beat him like 2 or 3 times. So it's nothing to write home about. Okay. No RLK letters to mama, but I do think I would have had a decent shot. But nice. I really hate that I couldn't give him a game, but I just didn't want to actively pull away from family things while on vacation to focus on hobby. So I thought I would be able to. I took my computer. I was ready to go in my mind. And then when the time came, I was like, nah, I'd rather just stay at the beach instead of going back to the place and trying to play a redemption game. So, yeah, I don't think anybody can really blame me for that one. But They are. The Lucky Grand Prix is in the final week of open play, and then the top 2 finishers from each pod is going to move on to Top Cut and play for the title of Lucky Grand Prix 16, which I believe will probably end up being the last one before Nationals because we're so close to it. So those are actively going. If you have games to play, try to get your games in. I am sorry, whoever is the screen name, the Pro Russian, because I'm paired with you and I have not reached out. I just been busy coming off vacation and now rushing right into podcast stuff. But apart from that, I believe we've got a lot of data to compile, put it into our algorithm, which is never wrong. And
never wrong.
It's never wrong. And we'll give you the new updated power rankings right here on the other side.
And now, it's time to find out where the hottest players in the game stack up in this week's Power Rankings. This is the top 10 Redemption players right now, according to us.
According to us, that's right. So if you get angry about where you're at, sorry. You got to talk to Jake. Call Jake and he'll figure it out.
Call John, he'll figure it out. It'll be fine.
Yeah, you tell them to come to me. I'll tell them to go to you, and we'll ignore all their calls. Perfect. But we do have some movement in this. Obviously, you heard a lot of the names there with the top finishes. We've got people ranked in certain spots, but I think the coolest thing about the power rankings that we've had throughout the tournament season is it's crazy how every time I think I'm about to drop somebody off of the list, they then do something. They're like, nope, they got to stay on. Like Joe Mama was, I believe he was 10th last week or last episode. And he was going to be one that potentially fell off. And then what does he do? He goes and wins Minnesota State. So none of this is super easy trying to figure out where all these people are ranked. So I know everybody wants to be in the top spot, but I'm just trying to do what I can to keep it kind of interesting. I'm not trying to manipulate things to where people are just, what is it, to where like people will do like headline grabs to where you're like, oh, that's clearly wrong, and you're just doing it to get a reaction. That's not what I'm doing, but if it happens, whatever. So that's a little bit of a disclaimer. We're going to jump right into it. And Jake, I'm going to let you take the first one here.
10.
At number 10, we have C the Tree, Mr. Chad France. Strong player, but I mean, he's moving down a few spots this week just to make room for everybody who's popping off this week.
Yep, absolutely. And
9.
That's kind of the same thing here. We've got Mr. Jared Strauss, who is coming off of the huge Lucky Grand Prix win in the last Grand Prix. Hasn't set the world on fire in this one or anything, but still deserves to be in the consideration for top 10. So we've got him here at number 9.
And hey, man, he got married this week too. So like,
that is right. So definitely that is absolutely something worth. Let's try this one. Woo! Yeah. There we go. I'm getting a little quicker on the sound clips. So congratulations to him. And I guess we'll be having to say congratulations not too long for Mr. Tyler Stevens, who unfortunately, if Tyler is listening, if you're listening, you're not on the list. You're not on the top 10. I'll go ahead and ruin it for you. But we still love you nonetheless. But we're losing you to Jess. Here we go. Number 8 is going to be one of those people that I think I mentioned earlier, someone that hasn't been on the list for real, but feels like they should be just because of who they are as a person and player for the game. So we'll let you spotlight this person.
8.
Number 8, we have John Early, Mr. Red Dragon Thorn. It's good to see him playing some more Redemption. He's always a good player, and it's good to see him in tournaments right now.
Yeah, much like having Mr. Hiatus, Tyler Stevens, doing really well. Having elders play the game and do well, I think it's something that in the past has caused some, at least conversations back when I first joined. the boards, it seemed like people were talking about elders playing and always doing well and cramming up the top, I guess, leaderboards for different categories and things. But having just a complete absence there feels not as good as having at least a few of them have a presence in the competitive scene. So it's nice to see Tyler Stevens doing well, even though we've moved him off the list this week, but then getting replaced by another elder and John Early, who has apparently found a knack for finishing second place at state tournaments, which if he was going to play at nationals, I would say that probably means he's going to do really well at nationals, but obviously he's usually the MC at nationals now, so he has foregone the competitive aspect at nationals, but good to see him doing well during the tournament season.
Definitely.
7.
At number 7, we've got our boy Jaden Alstead, and he was 8th last week. We moved him up this week because he did get type 2 at the Minnesota State tournament. He also has put together a couple of decent finishes in other categories, I believe. I'll have to scroll back up here because there's so many tournament results. But he won booster, and then he also actually, no, he didn't. Sorry, I lied. He won booster and he won second. He won type 2, and then it was third place in teams that he got. I thought he got third in sealed, but that was not the case. That was Mr. Joe Andrighetti. And just ironic here. Yeah, ironic.
6.
I'll just go ahead and tell you, Mr. Joe Mama is right here. I said before, I was ready to say that he was going to fall off the list this week to create room for a new person. And then he goes and cleans up at the Minnesota State tournament, doing well there and winning type 1 with a loaded field, having Jaden in the field, having John Early, and still coming out on top. Good showing for him.
Joe Mama's really good.
5.
At number 5, we have Baboony Tim, Mr. Tim Estes. He's still keeping it wild in that jungle, crushing it. I love this guy.
Absolutely, well deserved.
4.
At number four, and this is where it kind of got jumbled here. I know that I have had a couple of times where Justin's reached out and was like, hey, somehow I did, or I think even this past week, he's like, I did really well, but I fell a spot in the rankings. And okay, it's so hard to find spots for people, but I definitely think he's one of the top players in the game right now. And if nationals were to happen, I would think he would be one of the handful that you would pick to win certain categories. And I think that he's firmly in that conversation, but I think that we have a couple of people, or a few people ahead of him. There's 3 ahead of him right now, but he was really close with us with Jay for 4th and 3rd. And we put him here because Jay ended up getting a head-to-head win against him. So we wanted to value that. So at 3, we have Mr. Oh, well, hold on. Let me play the thing. I guess that should.
3.
So at number 3, we've got Flooded Red, Jay Chambers, Rooted Red, whatever red, just some shade of red. We've got him right here. And I feel like he's also in that conversation for people that you're expecting to go to nationals and have a shot to win. Now, definitely. I'll be the first to say that Jay's in that category to where, like, it doesn't matter what he does beforehand. We kind of need to see it at nationals to kind of believe the hype, because he was well positioned last year. And that's not a knock on him. It's just like, hey, we want to see the finish before we claim the finish, so to speak. But I definitely think he's in that conversation and deserves to be. So that'll bring us to number 2.
2.
At number 2, we have Brian Jones, Jonesy. He's made him way back on the list, and he's got all the way to number 2. Let's go.
All the way to number 2. And Brian also, in addition to what he did on record here for our tournament results at the Tennessee State tournament, winning booster, sealed, and second in type 1, he also went to the South Central Regionals and won booster, sealed, and type 1.
And shaking.
But including that, he also played 2 locals against his play group, which is a sizable group, probably the largest play group in a single location in the country. And he played 3 categories for each of those, booster, sealed, and type 1. And he swept both of those. So that's 6 wins there, plus 5 more wins across Tennessee, state tournament, and South Central regionals. My man has won 11 categories since we last recorded. So that is a huge buffer to his ranking, and that's why he's moved so far up the board. Now, we kind of had a similar thing with Babooni Tim earlier in the year, where he traveled to a couple of different tournaments and did really well, and we wanted to reward those. But Brian's probably going to be disappointed that he's not in first place. But they'll get a chance to duke it out, because right now, first place, we've still got I Am Bread, Jeremy Chambers. And the reason that Jeremy Chambers is staying here and not getting jumped is because Brian Jones and Jeremy Chambers played head-to-head at the Tennessee State Tournament, and Jeremy beat him. So in a straight head-to-head game, Jeremy beat him. Now, obviously, Brian has cleaned up in other categories and won those, but on the same, like, flip the token over, Jeremy's been cleaning up type 2 results all year. So it's kind of the same. So these guys will actually get a chance in a couple of weeks. I mentioned the East Central Regional tournament coming up on the 12th and 13th of July. So these guys will both be there and have a chance to kind of settle it before we head into nationals.
Yeah.
And I think that's really exciting. And I think it really, if I put Brian here, I feel like it lights a little bit fire, but I didn't do that intentionally just to do that. I really do think that it matters, the head-to-head matchup, Jeremy and him. And Jeremy hasn't done poorly in anything he's played in. He's actually, I believe, he's 3-1 in the Lackey Grand Prix, and the only loss, I believe, they didn't end up playing the game, from what I could tell. Him and Red Wing, I believe. I think he conceded to him, but he's won his other games. So he's doing well there. He's doing well in person. I just feel like there hasn't been any reason to take him down, since he does have that head-to-head, and he's been doing well in all of his games. So that's where we stand heading into this final run of tournaments. Obviously, Jay's going to have some results for us with the Midwest Regional. We're going to get the North Central Regional, which is going to include the Allsteads, Joe Andrighetti, Gilball. There's going to be a lot of things, and Gilball is one of those to where, like, I really wanted to put him on the list, but I didn't know who to drop for that.
Honorable mention.
Could have been over Chad in the 10th spot, but obviously he's going to get another chance to.
These are not wrong. Our opinions.
Well, okay, perfect. That's right. They're not wrong, but he'll get a chance. Gilball will get a chance at the North Central Regionals to do well. So we're going to see potentially a lot more movement heading into nationals, but this is where we think they are right now. And then I do believe, and I haven't talked to you about this, Jake, but I do believe before nationals, we should discuss, use this segment of the podcast to discuss, and maybe we release it like the week of nationals, but where we think players will finish at nationals and the odds of them winning certain categories being where they rank. Instead of just saying these are the top players right now, sure, these are the top players, but where do we expect them to finish at nationals? Like,
we can do a fantasy draft.
Okay. And if I pick winners or you pick winners, okay, that's interesting. But see, you would have to pick that. That's cool, because that would bring in, like, if you pick Brian Jones, you might not be picking him and expecting him to win type 1. Like, he has a shot,
booster for sure.
You're definitely picking him with an expectation that he's going to win booster or sealed or both.
Yeah.
And then you might pick Jeremy for type 2 and type 1 and just see which one of us picks the most winners. That's interesting. That is definitely interesting.
That'd be fun. We can do that. So for this upcoming showdown between Brian and Jeremy, I imagine there's gonna be like a whole like video crew there, like, this is the number 1 and number 2 on the power ranking. This is crazy. What's gonna happen? And, like, tumbleweeds are going by, and like Old West music's playing behind them. Draw.
Marty Robbins in the background.
Exactly.
Jeremy's got the big iron.
Exactly.
I don't know who I would pick to finish to win that. I do know that it's going to be even more difficult for us if we end up with the same result. Mm-hmm. If we end up with Jeremy winning type 1 and type 2, but Brian Jones cleaning up and winning booster and sealed, because then you're right back in the same situation, and it's I don't know where that falls. And then you have to mix in all the results from the other tournaments, but definitely a fun time to be trying to rank things. But in addition to, us talking about nationals and the odds to win, you also get the players that haven't been on the list because they haven't been super active this tournament season, like Josh Potratz. You have also Nick Marshall. If he shows up, you assume he will do well. I don't know about winning, but he'll do well. You have, I don't know. I don't think he's going to play, but what if like Tyler Stevens played type 1? Mm-hmm. I know that he's probably wanting to play type 2, but he's done well in type 1 this tournament season. It would be fun to see him play at nationals and see where he would fit. But we haven't seen that in the last few years, him playing type 1. So like there's really no, like, what do you expect from him playing in type 1? Like what kind of deck you think he's actually going to play? Just a lot of unknown elements that could make that interesting. So definitely some fun discussion points coming up for ranking players heading into nationals. And again, 29 days away. I'm super excited for it. I think this really could be one of the best nationals that we've had, especially considering the excitement and all of the things of new players and people having their first nationals experience. I think there's quite a few players that are going to be in that boat, in that category. Like last year, was that your first nationals experience ever?
First nationals experience.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if like previously when you were I didn't know if you had any previous experience where you might have came, but I do know that we have some people like that. Like Babuni Tim, I don't know if he came way back when he was playing, but now that he
said he did one in
fully,
California.
Yeah, now that he's fully ingrained in California, I believe was 2009, if I'm not mistaken. So, I mean, 15 years later, but it might as well be his first nationals experience. You're going to get potentially a couple of kids from Chad's play group having their first experience there. So a lot of that, and that excitement always helps amplify the moment for those people, it being the first. And then, dude, imagine like the competitive nature of, I mean, we've had a really good tournament season leading up to nationals, and I think it's been kind of balanced out by people sharing information and things and making that information available to where you can show up with maybe not the same ability as a player, but you can show up with one of the top deck lists and try to perform well and get yourself on the rankings after nationals, because we will be doing a re-ranking afterwards. A lot of that open sharing information. I think that's been really cool to see leading up to nationals, but nationals is where the big boys show up and try to perform, and they make their final deck calls, and then they go right into it. And I think the list of who we think is going to win nationals is different than the current top players now based on results slightly. I think that would be definitely interesting for us to rank those.
Definitely.
But I guess we'll get ready to move into, is it Agur the Creator? Is it Tyler the Creator? I don't know. But we'll get ready to welcome Tyler Stevens to the podcast and talk about card design on this week's Agur the Creator.
And now, join us as we head into the design lab and brainstorm new card ideas with this week's Agur the Creator.
It is Agur the Creator, but we also have Mr. Tyler Stevens, as we told you last episode. So maybe it's Tyler the Creator. How you doing, Tyler?
Tyler the Creator this week, man. It's awesome. I'm ready for this. It's amazing.
No lawsuits yet for Tyler the Creator using the title, but I love it.
Yeah. So we have Tyler here. I'm going to ask him a few questions. We're going to talk about some card design, some just philosophy, some of those things. But let's get with a quick intro. I mean, most people know who Tyler is, Mr. Hiatus is, but just a quick intro. Who are you to the game? Why should people? What do you do in the game?
So who am I to the game? I am just a humble servant of God, servant for everyone else, for the community and what they need. As of now, I'm designing cards, and Gabe's been doing a phenomenal job, really leading the team for 10 years. And I knew Brian Hake back in the day as well. I loved talking card design with Brian, and just picking Gabe's brain over the year. And then over the last few years, I've just really been working with Gabe on just designing cards. So now I've been doing lead design. I kind of came up with the Israel block, and I've just been making cards and trying to help out the community in any way I can, even with just videos I do and just being active on Discord. But yeah, I'm making cards, and I just pray about it all the time that I never felt like I was creative. That's not something that I had in my toolbox, and I used to pray about creativity. I research cards. I look at other card games. Jake, you and I have talked. I mean, you showed me Flesh and Bone, right? And then or Flesh and Blood, whatever. I just look into cards. I literally on one of my tabs in my phone are multiple other card games where I just look at stuff and I read old articles. So who am I to the game? I'm just a student that's here to help everyone. But currently, I'm just a student that's making up some cards right now, and it's been fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, how is life for you right now? I know you got engaged recently. How is life going?
I loved the shout out on the podcast. That was awesome. Life has been amazing. And just in this last year, I've been challenging myself on just tithing more to God and what does it mean to giving God and what can I give God? Is it my time? What is it? And he's just constantly been blessing me. Jess and I went to Jamaica and popped the question. And then there was a job that came up for work, and some people asked me to apply. And I didn't feel right about it. When I prayed, there was always, God won't give you doubt. Gabe actually said that for something that Chris was asking about. And sure enough, I didn't apply for it. And another one came in and I applied and I got a promotion last week. I mean, it's just constant. God just showing us, hey, here with you, the new set. I mean, just seeing it literally last night, I was just scrolling through, looking at all the images of the cards, just being like, this has been amazing. The team effort that we had this year for Israel's inheritance. So life is amazing right now. It doesn't look to slow down any. Today we went and bought and paid. Just been very blessed by God. She paid for the venue today. We went and saw it and paid for it. So we have our wedding venue and our date and our photographer. So
cool.
It's good.
Do you mind sharing when the date is? When are y'all?
5/25/25. It's going to be the Sunday before Memorial Day.
That's really cool. I'm excited for that. We've been praying for you.
Planned it around nationals. There you go.
Oh yeah, definitely before Nats. I've had multiple people say that. Before Nats. Yep. Derek Torado.
Jess, we got to get this done because tournament season's going to ramp
tournament
up.
Season kicking in. Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned you like the shout out on the podcast, and we did give you a couple shout outs for it, but I also mentioned a couple of times, I was like, she's going to try to steal him away from us.
Mm-hmm.
So
She's upstairs watching TV. I said, I got the podcast. Got to go.
Nice. With the promotion and stuff, though, are you still going to have the open schedule to do what you're doing with the game, or is that going to kind of shift around a little bit?
I made the next set. Now I'm talking the 2025 set, and it's still in draft mode. It's very much a draft. I made that set, and I made Israel's inheritance on my flights for the most part, going to and from the client, and that is when I just get a lot of time to myself, and I can download articles and I read about other games and I read about card design, and then God's told me before, hey, open up your Bible. It's man, this is weird. And you just open up your Bible and someone's sitting next to you on an airplane. And I'm just all right, well, I got plenty of stuff to read, and I'll start reading, and then boom, here's some ideas too. And it's oh, let me write this down. And I just go through, I've been reading my Bible. I've been in my Bible a lot more lately over the last year compared to earlier. And it just goes hand in hand with card design, and just getting I don't know, motivation, I guess, getting inspired by just reading the Bible and then doing design. So to answer your question, the more I work, the more cards I design. I mean, the more I'm traveling, and I'll be traveling to and from the client, the more I just get to have time by myself to just read and research and think. I mean, there's so much of the Bible we still haven't tackled. So I can't wait to hit it. And I got a lot of plans. But I very much want to talk to the whole team, say, hey, where else do you guys want to go? Because this is kind of where I'm feeling led to design. But I'm not going anywhere. I know that.
I like that for sure. That's really awesome.
That's a great answer. We appreciate that one.
Okay, so the next question here is, what is your favorite card that you designed? Let's say, what are your favorite cards that you've designed?
This is a tough one. I've been on the team since GOC, and Joe and you were in there, and we were talking about like concepts of GOC from a long time ago, and I was pulled in shortly after that. So I give Gabe a ton of credit for GOC. He did so much of that work. He already laid out the plan. So there was stuff I helped with, but for really when I think of like cards I designed, I think from Israel on. So I love dominance. I love unique, creative. You can use dominance flexible. I didn't put this one in there, but Banner of Love. That was so the cards I posted on Discord today, and we'll talk about that later. Banner of Love, I have an original version with the AI art on there and everything, and it's the only thing that's different is the discard. Gabe had that. I was trying to not make it as strong, and it's still the interrupt ban, and the whole thing was supposed to show marriage. So Banner of Love is definitely a big one. I made Banner of Love 2 years ago, over a year ago or something, and I just kind of had it stashed away. So that's definitely up there for me. Seeing that come to light was awesome. And there's a lot of dominance that I like. So I put down Murderous Command and Warrior Overtaken.
I love those. Those cards are so good.
Strong, thematic, and I do think there was some caution on my approach for dominance. I've been very vocal about I don't like cards that just every single deck gets this card. I'm very much big on dominance being thematic. And I had people ask me, well, how can you still make DOMs that are thematic? Like I just knew they were more so questioning, not challenging, just kind of wondering like, how are you going to do this? And then sure enough, we were able to have it in a starter deck. Like it's a starter deck card, and it is phenomenal. Murderous Command, one of the most popular cards right now. Those were special because those were also some of the first cards I designed. 40 years, I love it. I love a good reset. I love a specific reset. It's different and it's strong under deck, and how the strategy you can go into that. That gets better when Inheritance comes out too, because one of the themes just comes out. It comes out of the gate turn one and just keeps going, and you can flip them all underneath with Wilderness Unity and just pop them right back out. So I really like 40 years. And the Gods of Egypt, I love that card. I think Egyptians will get better. We had a tough time getting in that balancing act, but just the Gods of Egypt, just being cool. And then Mount Sinai was, to me, very important. It showed that, like, why should every hero use this? It's like, well, it represents, God giving us the 10 Commandments. And then it's the buff for Moses too. So it was really cool how we were able to tie everything in. And then I have Potential in the Land just because it was able to show all three themes. So it's really flexible, but it's still thematic. Famished I like just because it's really cool to just interrupt, discard 3, play the next. It's just, it's instead of the draw 3, you discard 3.
Yeah. Very like.
And then the last one.
Anti-thematic, like, and that's like it's thematic and says, but it's very like it takes on a new spin on the same interrupt. Do 3 of this. That's really cool.
Yep. And we had ideas for a sidecar type card for IR that if you discard a card from the deck, you get to draw 1. I could see that coming in as a promo later on, or some sort of like injecting speed with Egyptians and some more. So yeah, that's where I have from the current set, and then there's something else I have for the next set.
Oh, something else from the next set. This sounds like we need an emergency roses. Spoiler here.
Emergency. Let me find it.
The following segment contains spoilers that may or may not have been approved by the Royal Order for the Secrecy of Expansion Sets. Proceed with caution.
You have been warned. It's not a whole segment, but...
So, you can't just have me on here. I just couldn't resist the temptation. I am a people pleaser. I know that. Gotta work on it sometimes, but you got me this time. And this card has pretty much been verbatim the same. I think we tweaked a couple of the wording and we added one little aspect to it, but this card has been the same for a year essentially, and it's called the Terrified Chiefs. It is a warrior class Edomite. Strength and toughness is 1/1, and has a identifying on there for X. So you may draw one or increase this card XX this turn. X is the number of cards an opponent's banished pile. And then it gets to negate other cards in battle, cannot be prevented. The only thing that changed on this card is when we were adjusting drawing. This is so we just threw a draw one on this. Other than that, it's been the exact same. It's a self-increase card. That it's just fun. It's versatile. It's unique.
I like that a lot. Like,
one of my favorites.
I'm glad we got a really good one for our spoiler. This is cool. Like, I've said before, I like the option of having a really small character, so you can keep this guy at 1/1 and just draw one. Or if you need him to grow for a certain fight, like maybe they have a toss out, you're like, okay, we're gonna grow this guy, and then negate other cards as battle. Like, it all fits together with a CVP. Oh, that's a good modifier. And I think evil characters do negate other cards in battle better than heroes, because for heroes it's usually just prevent, because you're not actually like you're already in battle most of the time. Obviously you could abandon, but the point is, like, I think evil characters do negate other cards better than heroes, at least evil characters. Mm-hmm. So this is really cool, man. I like this card, CVP. We were talking about, like, man, this would be really good with Seized by Babylon if Seized by Babylon had pure CVP, but it's CVP by a good card, huh?
And we're not going to give. There's got to be some CVP evil enhancement in the set.
There's got to be what's going up there.
The fact that it's warrior class is cool too, because you have a small, nimble character that is 1/1. You can play with initiative, get a draw one, or you can equip it with whatever weapon. So I assume there's probably going to be some cool weapon that goes with it, potentially. But another cool thing is the modifier, because we were worried. I know that as we've talked about this set compared to what we got out of IR, one of the things that made it feel weaker than other sets was the lack of modifiers. And I know that you guys probably aren't going to go crazy with it, but we've at least seen a few modifiers included in the card design elements of what has been spoiled so far, which is nice to see.
So yeah, and the modifiers on IR, like, and I talked before, like, we had so much change so quick, and then one of them being the font size we wanted to increase. One, it's easier to read, and two, we automatically simplify the game if we can't have all these words on a card. If you look at words on a card on GOC with like a star ability, and there's cards that have 5 lines in a star, there's a few, and there's a lot of 4 lines in a star, and you just look at how much you have to read on a card, and then you go into a simpler aspect, it's like, it's kind of nice, but then you start missing certain things. And for me, it was an adjustment of trying to make sure I got the ability on a card, and so a lot of it was something's got to come off. And it's like, well, I can't cut off the ability, so they got to lose the modifier. And a lot of it was just me learning how to get my abilities on cards in a unique way to where they don't need a modifier, to where they can fit a modifier, but be worded slightly different. That's still not confusing. And it was just a learning curve. So yeah, you're going to see a lot more. You might see not as much modifiers as you think, and way more at the same time. It's a riddle for the next set. So with Terrified Chiefs, like, negate other cards in battle, so you either need a CBN band or a CBI band for him. And most people forget who the King of Edom from LOC, and that's because Edomites, they were brought in, and I really feel like with Israel's inheritance, we get to shore up like Canaanites, Moabites, and Edomites. So we get to hit on all the ites and kind of finish them out to where they're very strong themes individually. And with King of Edom, 8/12 warrior class, you may banish up to X good cards from a discard pile in number of your Edomites. So you can banish 2 if you have him and Terrified Chiefs out. And then because Terrified Chiefs is out, you get to take an OT Crimson Enhancement from reserve and then ban to an Edomite CBI, and he's an 8/12. So you can, regardless, you have an 8/12 that gets to banish 2 good cards from their discard pile, gets to ban to Terrified Chiefs, get to take a card from take an OT Crimson Enhancement, and now you have this big by the numbers ban that can be buffed up.
That's really cool. I like that. And you're preventing everything. That's
Mm-hmm.
you negate anything that was already in play, preventing everything coming up. That's really cool. I like that.
Yeah.
And you probably have some CBP enhancements in your back pocket. I like that a lot, especially if you can grab one in reserve.
I like that. There's going to be one that you kind of want in your reserve, probably not in your deck.
Oh, man. I like that.
It's a big boy.
That's good stuff.
So, yeah, that's one of my favorite cards that I've designed. I like unique cards that give you options. You'll see with a lot of my cards, like one of my favorite cards is Baptism of Jesus. Like of course it's really strong, but it is thematic in multiple ways. It's Meek and John. And then it gives you these two really strong options. Like I love options on a card. I also love when you as the player get to think and it puts your opponent in a spot where they have to think. And if you have Terrified Chiefs down, it's like, do I got to get around a 1/1 guy with potential to have CBP enhancements? Like if I have Humble down and you attack me and you have hand advantage and I got a 1/1 and all my stuff CBP, that's really tough. Or it's like you have 20 cards in your banish pile, which happens so many times. Yeah, that happens so many times in testing. 20 cards in the banish pile. And of course we made cards that help with that.
Are you sure you want to turn on your Herod's Temple? I don't think you do. I don't think you want to.
Yep.
That's awesome. And yeah, I love Baptism of Jesus. I just wish it was in like it fits my themes, but it's always for disciples and empty tomb heroes. Yeah. It just doesn't fit my themes.
You just don't play the guy that's literally made for it.
Exactly. Well, man, that's awesome. We got some good information there. I love Murderous Command Warrior Overtaken. Those are some really cool cards you designed there. And thank you for the spoiler. I really appreciate that. It's really cool.
Absolutely.
So tonight, I feel like we can talk about some design philosophies. And one of those first design philosophies that happens for card games is the queen problem. Magic the Gathering is the first trading card, at least the first one that made it out as an actual product. They had a problem in the first few sets. They printed a bunch of cards, but some of the cards were very powerful, and the creator, the Richard Garfield, is like, the people are not going to have all the cards. Like they're only going to have a few of these, and maybe they'll have one of this, and maybe their friend will have one too, but they're not going to have all the cards. Well, we know that didn't turn out to be true. People started stacking the best cards in the game. They started stacking Black Lotus, Ancestral Recall, and you may not know these cards, but just know that they're...
I know them.
Powerful. And if you find a copy of those those are thousands and thousands of dollars based on their history to the game. So one of the things about trading card games is because you can compare trading card games to a game of chess where you kind of like mix all the pieces together in a bag and you get to build your own set. Okay, I'm going to switch this pawn out with a rook, and I'm going to switch this bishop up with a knight type thing. Like you get to bring your own board of tools to the table, your own chess pieces to the table. So why doesn't everybody just pick 50 queens? And that's what they call the queen problem. And the idea is every deck should just look the same, right? If all the cards are powerful, can you just stack them all together? What keeps decks different? What keeps cards limited? And we're going to go over that today. We're going to go over how Redemption handles the queen problem, how Redemption makes sure not every deck is the same, 50 Son of Gods, or not every deck is exactly the same, every list is exactly the same. So there's lots of ways we can go over this. So I just wanted to get Tyler's initial thoughts on that and what he thinks about it.
So I'll stick to the point of design philosophy because a lot of it is, you got the Timmies, the Spice and everything, and you got just people, how they play and what is fun to them and what isn't. So I'll keep that out of it and just strictly go to design. How do we do it as card designers? And the first answer for me is brigades. That is to keep everything aligned. You're over here, you're over there. You can't play that card. It's too strong. And you have alignment and you have brigades. And if you really look at how you break down a card from the very top to bottom, your card type, your alignment, and your brigade. So we have card type. You can only have so many. So we have built-in rules for Lost Souls and Doms. And the Wild Wild West days of Redemption, there was no dominant rules. It wasn't necessarily needed. For a while, we had 7 Doms that were good. And as more cards came out, it's hey, now we're doing 8 and 9 dominance in a deck, and you're just speeding to get your dominance. So we made the 1-for-1 rule. So 1 lost soul per deck, or 1 lost soul equals 1 dominant. And so that was the like one of the original rules. Of course, card limits as well. But for me, go ahead.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, like I don't remember if there was a dominant. Yeah, like you said, I don't remember if there was a dominant rule because like I think I only had like 5 dominants, right? I had Christian Martyr, Angel of the Lord, Son of God, and Falling Away, and I think that's the dominance I had.
And then New Jerusalem.
Burial was in there too. Yeah, well, I was playing before New Jerusalem was Burial. Those like so I didn't even have 7 doms in my deck. That's really cool. I didn't think about that, but that's a really good point that you didn't even need a dominant rule for the first few years of the game because there weren't 7 good dominants to play in every deck.
Yeah. So that built-in rules, and a lot of it we don't like to do built-in rules. Like we very much like to let card design be taken care of by card design. But sometimes over the years, your card pool, I mean, what are we at right now? 5,500 cards, and then from a rotational standpoint, 20, probably roughly 2,000. I don't count alternate borders and stuff. So brigades are huge. So I can't just play AOC on, a 1/1 hero that's outside of the brigades. And we started seeing, we started adding a lot of brigades, and believe you and Babooni both said, like, usually the more brigades on a card, the stronger it is. And so we also have limits, and then we get punishment for brigades. So there's so many different, I've talked about punishers, benefiters, negators, like different aspects of the game. For me, being able to look at it as a hierarchy. So you see your card type, you see your alignment, you see your brigades, and then you can go, what's the next level down? And you can start going, like, whether it's testament or whatever identifiers you use, and you can start making, I'll use AOC as the example again, to where AOC can be used by a meek disciple to get the full benefits. So you can bring in built-in aspects to where it's like, well, you can't just throw AOC in every deck because you don't have the right colors. And if you play with more colors, it's going to be a lot harder to actually get everything that works. So for me, the biggest one, Redemption does a lot through brigades, and then you'll start seeing theme restrictions. You'll see unity, and you'll see unity that's really strict, and you'll see unity that's a lot, unity gospel heroes for Mary Holy Virgin and stuff, to where you still want them to be within their theme, and you can't just splash everything in. I thought John the Forerunner was way too strong. I was the one who was like, hey, this is just another prophet that's really good. I think he is good. We're just at the point of wanting to draw too many cards right now that we don't want to keep a low hand. But John the Forerunner is really good in certain decks and play styles. But that's just a unity that we bring in. And we talked about Matthew. You can't just play with every color of the rainbow, right?
Yeah, I think for sure John is cool because he demonstrates 2 different types of theme tie-in. Like you have the stated theme tie-in of Unity Gospel Heroes, but you also have another theme tie-in with his nativity theme of low hand size, and that's not a hard theme, but it's a soft theme because that's one of his synergies with the rest of nativity cards. Is like if your other nativity cards are asking you to play with low hand, and John is asking you to play with low hand, they play well together. And like we're saying, like AOC, that's another soft theme where like you can still play it on anybody, but if you're playing it on a purple king from the Old Testament, it's just not the same as playing it on a meek disciple from the New Testament. So like it's really cool how like sometimes the restrictions are hard rules. Like you cannot play Mary in an Old Testament deck. I don't care. Like too bad, it's not going to happen. But you could play John in an Old Testament deck. But maybe it depends on if your deck can actually handle the low hand count. Well, actually, you can't play John because he's got Unity. But the point is, you can play AOC in an Old Testament deck, and it's not a hard restriction, but it is a power level. Like he loses synergy point. AOC loses synergy points when it's in an Old Testament deck.
Yeah. So there's the card we just talked about, and the abilities that it's doing there. If you're not increasing, I won't get too much because we did the spoiler portion, so if anyone wants to be spoiled, I won't get into the ability of the card if they wanted to skip over that earlier, but I will just say there's the benefactor of the banish pile, and if you're not doing anything with that banish pile, then the card, you don't reach that full potential. If your deck doesn't have certain aspects, like you said, with hand advantage, or if I want your banish pile to have cards in it, and I don't have anything else in my deck that does that, then they just don't work as well. So we use themes, we use identifiers, testaments, banner of love, male, female. You'll see more of strength and toughness, like numbers mattering in battle. If strength is higher than this, this card cannot be negated or something like. And then when it comes to your opening 8, if I just take the best 50 cards in the game, which is subjective, but I take a lot of the strongest cards that we as a community see, throw them all into a deck, and I draw 8, and I look at my opening hand, and it's like, oh well, how do you even play with that? Because it's just every single brigade.
Exactly.
Forgiveness of Joseph, phenomenal card, Blue Brigade. I would love that card in other brigades, but it's a CBN, negate, keep doing stuff. Baptism of Jesus that we talked about. You're not going to get that full benefit, and that's where people are like, I'm not getting this full benefit, or I don't get like on Magnificate. You don't really see that in a lot of decks with the musicians, even though it involves music, because I don't get the CVP or the interrupt. It's just a reserve.
Exactly. And that's cool. That one has 2 different levels of theme synergies too, right? Like it has the gospel character interrupt, and it has Mary's extra prevent. So like there's 3 different versions of how strong the card is based on who's wielding it. And I love those little like not only is it tied to their power level and design philosophy, but it's also tied to thematics. And that's one of the things I love about Redemption and in any card game that can tell a story through what a card's mechanics actually does. I think that's just so amazing. Obviously, Mary is an amazing character from Scripture, and she gives this amazing glory to God in the Magnificat, and it's such a really cool card because of that. And you get to see design philosophy, you get to see story, all those things merging together in a card. I really love that thing. And I think like one thing I'd say is for what Redemption does well with solving the queen problem is it sets up clear counters to cards. So like you say we even found the 50 best cards in the same brigade. Like you actually found a 50 card deck that was actually fully like playable with each other. If you just posted that list and maybe you found like the strongest deck there, but if people look at that list, they're probably going to be able to formulate a strategy that would beat that, even if it's the strategy that they have is not stronger in the sense of like against the meta game. They can formulate a deck that's stronger against that deck because they know what that deck is doing. And I know we've seen cards released like Guardian of Your Soul that are specifically targeting a specific strategy. And when you introduce rock, paper, scissors into like obviously broad strokes here, but like you introduce rock, paper, scissors into your design philosophy, that helps cut down at the queen problem too, because you could pick the 50 best cards, but that sits you at a certain space. That means that other people can attack you and take out what you're good at and really like find your weaknesses there. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. So let's go back to the 50 best, and we have a bunch of colors. So we have all these different brigades, and then boom, Matthew hits you turn 1, and they just got 13 on you, like they drew 13 on their first attack, and they probably had 5-6 cards in hand when they attacked, and now boom, their hand's max. Like more than likely you're going to lose that game. It's just too much of a hill for the opponent to climb. I was saying I would love to see an all dual deck where like tons of dual alignment, enhancements, and characters. Like that would be so cool. And I still think people very much underestimate the power of dual enhancements, even if it's something so simple as discard a card of opposite alignment that we've seen, whether that was Force Fire, Razor, I forgot. The fact that I can play it on my heroes or my able characters is phenomenal. So I have a higher chance to block and a higher chance to attack. And if I drew 8 and 6 of my cards are dual, I can attack and block however I want. As soon as I was talking about that, John Early posts House Divided. So it's like you always have these checks and balances built in, and you'll continue to see that in this next set too.
I've got a question for you based on talking about these ways to restrict and card design and kind of taking care of itself and balancing the game state. It seems like when I first came into the game, one of the more recent sets, we were in the middle of, I think, the second phase of Prophecy of Christ had just dropped. But right before that was Fall of Man, which had a ton of Unity requirements. And it almost felt like you guys leaned too far into that a little bit to where cards just didn't see play because it was too restrictive. And now we've seen a lot of cards come out that, like, one of my favorite themes is obviously playing blue and patriarchs and stuff like that. And you have Out of Their Hands, if used by a Son of Jacob, is in the ability, so it doesn't require the Unity. So then you can play that in a deck just so long as you can have a Son of Jacob in battle to play it on or whatever, or if it's in battle or whatever on the wording for the dominant. But wording that into the ability versus having a strict requirement. And then it's kind of like Magnificat, where you're getting an extra benefit if it's used by a character, and finding ways to put these strengthening parts, like, or having these strong abilities be tamed down by who is using the card, but it's also being worded into the ability versus Unity. Is that a conscious choice you guys are making? And are you going to, what does Unity look like in the future as far as a way to solve the queen problem?
So you can see POC was a larger set, GOC obviously. Now we're going to 129, and of the 129, there's 3 Unity, like actual Unity in IR. And for me, and you already gave examples, I love having what I call built-in Unity without saying it. And you look at one of the cards that Gabe did is the new Lost Soul, the dude, the Moabite. So that has a built-in Unity to where if your Moabite's discarded, shuffle all OT Lost Souls. There's no Unity on that card, but it doesn't. There is, right? But it's like not set it. So there's no strict Unity identifier that you have to look at. People do miss that Unity. We play a lot. We're invested in this game, but there's people who don't know what Unity is, or they look right over it. It's a small little identifier box that you need to see, and sometimes we pack a lot of information in an identifier. So we're trying to get away from that to where we use Unity when we need to. But a lot of cards that, just from my philosophy on designing, to where you can do built-in Unity, and Out of Their Hands is perfect example. It's got to be when it's in battle. And we haven't seen a lot of Sons of Jacob splashed into other things. And Jay and I were talking about it, and Jaden did a real good video where he did the King Jehu exchange with Sons of Jacob. I very much think that's a great deck. Purple, Jehu purple with Sons of Jacob, with Jehu exchanging and banding with hitting their hand with all those negates and underdecks and discards is really good. But Out of Their Hands is phenomenal. I always say that's a turn 1. That's usually a rescue. And so you have this big band with Patriarchs and Glory Lord. You got a boom, turn 1 Out of Their Hands. You got a first sacrifice. Like, Blue's got a lot of tools. It's just, that's a built-in Unity. Without it having to say it on the identifier, that's a really strong card.
Yeah, I like those soft Unity effects. Like, you could just play this with one Son of Jacob in your deck, but if it's just one, you may not get this in time. So you have to focus on Son of Jacob, but you can still have some other characters banding in there. That's fine. Like, just it's a softer Unity. It's not as like, it's not like Mary. Mary turns off when she sees anybody from outside of. You're not from the gospel. I can talk to you. So that's really cool. I like that a lot.
With Inheritance, originally I was messing around with like Joshua being a commander type card like Magic has, to where he could set himself aside, but then we weren't really doing set aside. So I was like, what could we do there? And I wanted him to like oversee the battle. And
that'd be awesome.
Joshua was in battle. He wasn't just overseeing, like he was in battle. So I wanted to carry that aspect of him being a commander and like give benefits if he's in play, or like, could I double an ability if Joshua's in play, or can I get like, can I take a card from my deck, but also take a card from their deck if Joshua's in play? Like, so I wanted to bring in those aspects to where the card's still good, but now we're bringing in these bonuses and benefits to tell that story. So not necessarily how we make cards strong, but that's one way to where I posted a card today and it was Unity Daniel, like all your cards. And you just
That's
have this
crazy,
crazy. So you see like how Unity is applied usually equals how strong the card is, 3 nails. I mean, you got Unity advantage, but then it's also CBN ROP. So Unity usually matches the strength of the card.
Well, I think we went over a lot of good ways that Redemption tackles the queen problem. Even though we see a lot of decks using the same cards, there tends to be a lot of different flavors of even those decks that are using the same cards. You may see a lot of Matthew, but people say, hey, I'm going to do Matthew, I'm going to do it in this way, or I'm going to use Matthew with Fools, or I'm going to do Matthew with a bit of a more balanced package. And then there's also cards to counter it, right? We have Daniel, we have Nativity, we have lots of other even decks that are just right on the edge too. Like there's a lot of Angels, there's a lot of other decks going around. The meta is not like frozen on any deck, right? Like personally, I do feel like Matthew has too big of a share of the meta, but at the same time, there's tools to fight him. Guardian Your Soul's coming out. There's a lot of good things to fight him. So I think Redemption has doing a good job of tackling the queen problem and not making decks all the same, not making everybody just stick to the same 50 cards. Like there's a lot of variety out there, and I think we see that every Nationals. That's really cool.
I have always said, and it's not a knock on the community, I think because we aren't as hyper competitive, because we don't do the prize support of monetary value, that we aren't as competitive of a community. And because of that, I do think that what is good and the meta really takes a while. And you can also say there's not as much content, and the community being smaller. Like there's a lot of factors, and I don't want to make it sound like we're not competitive. I do think, and I'll say this on my channel a lot, that we scratch the surface of what we can do in deck building. I wish I could make a deck every single day and share it. Like there's so many ideas I have, and I'll just make a deck and put it out there. There's a lot that just hasn't been played or isn't being played because it's not deemed strong. Jared winning the big LGP with purple. I did a video and I posted multiple decks when I was like, I remember Hendrix, I posted the video and I said, y'all remember the Purple Brigade? And he said, nope.
That was accurate at the time.
Absolutely. And I was like, man, I'll talk to Jay and be like, am I going crazy? Like, I know this is good. I'm not playing as much tournaments, but like, I know this is good stuff and it won't be played. I think our community very much, and this kind of always been like that, has to get whooped by something before it's like, yeah, I'll play that. You were talking about Harvest Time, but you had to leverage it. John early messaged me, and because I was like, hey, I have a deck, but it does leverage Harvest Time and a few other things. And he was like, I think the whole community is sleeping on Harvest Time. I was like, well, Chad's been beating him for like 2 years. He's been doing pretty well with Soul Surfer and Harvest Time. But so yeah, I definitely think we lack a little bit in the competitive nature, which I think is good. I don't think we have to have that hyper competition. I very much like that we're brothers and sisters in Christ, and we try to build each other up and hold each other accountable. So I don't think it has to be hyper competitive, but I do like that.
It gives room for other people to brew and to come up with new stuff. Like if you go to an established game with a huge player base that's already seen the format for like 4 or 5 months, you're like, they probably figured 98% of this stuff out already. Like there's not much I can actually change or do, but Redemption has so many different play lines and so many different strategies and synergies. Like we have the what is the Philistine fort? What is it? I forgot the name. It's on the top of my tongue.
Ashkelon,
right? Like that's the strategy that's been here for months, and we've just like now noticing it. Like, oh, okay. Like there's so many deep things that you can cook up. You can brew so many really cool things in this game. Like if you're someone who loves to like try something new and come up with some new ideas, like Jared, like a lot of people in our community, like this is a game where like you can pour your competitive and your creativity into that, and you can come up with a new creation. You might be able to blow everybody out of the water for a few tournaments, and then people will adjust and adapt, and then there's a new set of brewing coming out. Like I love that type of thing. So that's cool to me on that part.
I think one of the cool things and also one of the downsides about our community is now we're sharing a lot of information, but I think part of the drawback of sharing that information is if you see this state tournament, this regional, and Disciple Nazareth list won all of those are placed at all of those, then you start thinking, okay, this is the deck that I either have to play or I have to beat. And a lot of times it's just easier to invest the time to learn how to play that deck versus learn how to beat it. And then you end up with a lot of, I won't say straight copycat, because a lot of people put their own thoughts into it and they'll change out cards and things. But it's like we're just rehashing the same. Like we figure out what the meta is to about the 50, 60%, and then we just hammer that same. And there's still room for you to find a deck, but our community doesn't move as fast to find that other, 30, 40%, whatever it is. And that's kind of like the area where like a Jared lives, or, Chad with his Soul Surfer is hanging out in that area. So there's room for these deck lists to be developed and created. But it's just like, especially like I don't have a lot of time. Hobby time for me is a lot of time spent on the podcast, and I don't get to have cards in hand and think about it and all. So I don't build a lot of unique decks anymore because I'm focusing on this stuff. But I have ideas and things, but it's just easier for me to grab a deck and net deck. And obviously with Tyler putting out the video how to do it, now it's easier for anybody to grab and do. He laid the blueprint down. So I think a lot of times we're doing that, but I think it's also healthy to acknowledge that there is still that room to be creative and find a deck that's your own and that you can play with. Like the deck that Jaden did, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, maybe. It was for one of his Lucky Grand Prix games, I believe, where he played Jay, and he was using blue honeypot. Blue and honeypot. Okay, well, that's taking the deck that honeypot, we know what that is. That's an established commodity, but bringing in some kind of new thought process to it and being like, I'm going to try it with this. And then Tyler did it with Priest, and there's just different ways to take even that same concept, and we see that, but then honeypot is kind of the heart of all three of those decks. But there's, like, I always feel like there's something else out there that somebody could figure out, and it's kind of like when Jaden, Ashkelon's, the potential for that's been out for a while. It's just, light bulb here, let's do it. And there's stuff like that I think is there, and I think there's a lot more room for creativity in deck building than people acknowledge, at least from my untrained eye.
I agree. I love that. I mean, Jaden and we don't talk about the videos we're doing. I try not to do them on Thursday. Sometimes just life gets busy and I gotta pop one out when I can. And I always want to do a video, but I put one out on Thursday and it was the same without even us talking. He did his video on Thursday. I put mine out and boom, here's two honeypot, or here's two like different variants of the same originating concept. And in that video, I was like, just take Jake's build of Ruth Gray, like take that and throw honeypot in there too. Like that's a whole nother one because you got Bethlehem and David in there, and you already got the strong attacks. So I really like can you imagine? I like that we share stuff. I really do. I love sharing decks. I still like not sharing a deck if I don't want to, but can you imagine if honeypot, and I love that J1 TJC with honeypot, love it. Can you imagine if honeypot and Ashkelon were not talked about and they just show up at Nats?
That'd be crazy, right?
Yep.
Oh man, like that's like in my mind, I'm like, this would be fun to have like a professional scene for Redemption, and you could actually have teams of Redemption pros come up to a compound and spend a week there, and they get the new set and they get to brew decks there, and they get to try out their team strategies against other team strategies. That would be so fun to see, that type of stuff, man. Or like, it'd just be fun to think about, like, if we're living in a non-internet time again, like what each region would bring to Nats. But there is a homogenization that comes with the internet that where we start sharing decks, and there's definitely pros and cons to both sides. But yeah, it's always cool, the what ifs. Like, man, it'd be fun to see, like, if you gave players like a week and a half to just brew their hearts out, like with new cards, and then you said, okay, all the teams now fight each other with the new brews you got. That would be so fun to see. I would love that type of stuff.
Yep. And we used to have the sets come out at like different times. Like the sets came out at different times. We're trying to get more structure now toward boom, set at nationals. I think that'll help too. I know we still get into that lull time after Nats. That lull time, it's gone shorter and shorter. And when people have the hiatus after nationals, that's where my original name came from. After nationals, I get busy. And so I was like, well, I got to go on hiatus. That's where the name came from. And so people go on their hiatus after nationals. What used to feel like it wouldn't kick back up on the old forums until February timeframe, we're still going at it September and October. And now we have big tournaments going again. And from a design standpoint, I like to do a set rollout like a month after Nats or like 3-4 weeks after Nats. And even then I dropped the ball in the last one. So like doing a set rollout, I'm really excited to like, hey, get that opportunity back and let's do a set rollout to where I'm prepared, but I'm there when I need to be. And we do a set rollout like end of August, September. And so when people are just kind of like, oh, I'm redemptioned out for a little bit, that's when I'm making sure that the next set that's coming out in a year is completely buttoned up. I now look at sets as if can I send this to print? Like, not a wording standpoint. We got Marcus for that. But I mean, like, if I look at it, is there anything where I'm like, probably want to touch on that a little bit. So I have been working on this next set for collectively 2 years. And it's ready to roll out. And when we get together, so we don't have that dull moment. And I want to make sure we don't have that dull moment. We get a little break and then we go right back into it. That's for continuity for the community to where they get the set at nationals and there's no pressure on Rob. There's no extra money that Rob has to do to get us to the front of the line for print, to where you all have the cards packaged and ready to go at Nats. So we're going to make sure we still do that. But that really helps from a community standpoint from the meta. We used to get sets late-ish, just based on how, volunteer when we can get to them and everything. Now we're trying to make sure that they're out at Nats. People see them, and they got all year to learn the meta. So you'll see next year, you're going to see, I think, more IR ingrained with inheritance, and people are going to be using all sorts of stuff. And it's like, wait a sec, this actually does work, or this is strong, or I just needed a few other cards. The meta is going to be completely open next season.
There's a lot of bangers in IR that just like you just need a few more cards to fit in to get their whole theme up to the power level. Man, Blood Avenger's so good, but like I just need some more Old Testament white cards that get this up to strong enough as GOC white. Like, not that it's bad, but like sometimes it's just lagging a little bit behind GOC white. So you're like, can I just have a few more cards? And like, if you get a few more cards, that could just be the difference in being able to fleet a set, right? Like, personally, I don't love pure Philistines right now as a defense. I know some people do, and that's a matter of opinion, obviously. I could be wrong, but like, I think that if Philistines got a few more enhancements, a few more evil characters, they could really become a tier 1 defense. Right now, I think they're about a tier 2 defense.
I agree.
I love the core of them, though. Like, the core is amazing. That it splashes really well with other black defenses. And it's just missing, like, just a few more enhancements, just a few more evil characters, and then it becomes a really powerful defense in purity. And I love that. So I love that type of part of Redemption. But to keep on moving.
Last one, and I'm done with it. With IR, we were bringing in Sons of Jacob. They'd never been in there. We brought in Wilderness, all new theme. Priest went to Clay. That was all new. So people were comparing it to GOC of, hey, I got 200-something cards to work with, and a lot of these themes, we broke it down into 2 phases. Well, IR was 129 cards with all new themes, or, hey, Sons of Jacob have never had all 12 sons. Let's really bring them into the game. Now that that's been established, and now we have Clay as priest, now we get to go into inheritance, and we have Moabites, Edomites, and Canaanites already in the game. So how do we make them good? What do they need? And I don't have to do an entire theme out of scratch. I already have stuff to work on. So that's the other thing. So you're going to see, like, we're going to round out these other themes, and we're going to add on for what IR did. And there's a lot more there, because I think people forget almost all that was new themes.
That's exciting. That's really exciting. And whenever we get back to Assyrians later in another set too, like there's a lot of gems out there that just need a few more cards to surround them to make them actually like shine. That's going to be super cool to see. So I'm really excited for that. So to keep moving with this segment, you got to release a ton of some of your favorite test cards and AI art you've been doing today. They look awesome. They look amazing. And for anybody who's looking back, this is July 1st. If you go back to Card Creations, he posted, like 15, 18, maybe 20 test cards. But let's go over 5 of 7 of your favorite ones that you posted today, because there's a lot of really juicy ones in here, just to see where your mind's at on these cards, the story to tell, the design philosophy on these cards. Let me tell me some of the favorite ones you put it out today.
This was all for me to like learn and get better and use AI generator. So one of my favorites is Abraham. It's strong and tells a story. So yeah. So
there we go.
Negate other cards except this card. Good. That's strong. He's a 10/10 dual brigade. That's really good. But then he gets to reserve Isaac from hand or territory. Yeah, Unity, Genesis, and then if you do, your enhancements are CBP. So it ties in the like you don't have, because Isaac never died, so you can like, well, I'm not actually killing him. I can just reserve him. I brought him all the way to the mountain, but I never actually killed him. So you can reserve Isaac to get like a huge buff. So it tells a theme, or it tells the story, and it's really strong. So Abraham was definitely one of my favorites.
Definitely, yeah. He's a negate other cards except this card. That's really cool. And then you get the CBP if you get to reserve Isaac from hand or territory, which tells the story perfectly. So it's that. I love that the marriage of theme and power there. It's a really cool card there, and that modifier for all of your enhancements. Love that one. That's really cool. What's another one of your favorites from the?
I was playing around with this, and maybe you'll see this in Inheritance, but making strength and toughness matter. A lot of people just kind of skip over on like initiative and like counting everything. So I did like Delilah and maybe into a Philistine or draw two, classic Tyler. But while blocking, while total strength of heroes is 12 or more, protect this card from good OT cards. So that kind of goes back to Samson never hurt her. She was his idol, his weakness. So she gets to be protected from people who are deemed strong.
That's awesome.
You said Philistine needed a little bit, and she is a Philistine,
exactly.
Correct? So you get a little bit of protection brought in, and I don't think Philistines currently have any real protection. So that would be adding an element to that. So that's kind of cool that we just talked about it, and now one of these random cards that you worked on would be bringing something into Philistines to kind of cover up one of those things that they lack currently. I also think it's really cool that it plays in with the story and the thematics. Both of the first two cards you've talked about here, Abraham and now Delilah, kind of play into that. So finding a way to balance that into the ability is kind of cool.
Delilah's super cool. Like, I like this. Like, so she has a band of Philistine or draw two, like you said, and while blocking, total strength of heroes is 12 or more. She's protected. So like, it could be a huge band of like warriors, and she's like, "Hey guys, chill out, calm down. Let's think about this." Or Samson himself has a 12 power guy, as we'll see later in these cards. One thing that I consider adding, I don't know if you think this would be a good idea, but like, what if she could not be negated by a character of 12 strength or more? I think that would be a really fun tie into the fact that like she was the ultimate foil to Samson. Like you can't negate off of an enhancement on Samson because that's tied to him. Like, I think it'd be really interesting if she wouldn't be able to be negated by a 12 power hero. I think that would be really tied into her theme of sneakiness for the Philistines and stuff. So what do you think about that?
I like it. The first thing I think is, while strength is 12 or more, evil cards can't be prevented because Samson turns everything off and then she would come in. So that's the first thing. Because strength of 12 or more is so easy to get, that it's like, if you get that high, I get CBN really makes you think. So I'm not opposed to that at all either. Like, I can block with this, and then you have to decide, oh, am I going to ban? Because now you're going to trigger CBN. I like it. I would have to play around with some wording and definitely testing. Anytime you're throwing in like big modifiers for things.
Well, I was thinking for the CBN, it would just be from a single character that's 12 strength or more. Like, if it's a band, they could still throw in a negate adder. Like, but if it's one character that's 12, or if they're all the characters somehow in battle are 12 strength, like she's like, y'all are all big guys, you're not dealing with me. I think that'd be really interesting. But yeah, she does need a modifier to fight against your Samson that you got here too. I didn't think that's a good point to remember. So you said Elijah was the next one you want to talk?
Yeah, I like Elijah. So he gets to resurrect, did that, brought the kid back, and then we're the band to Elisha. So he shows the tie in there for the mentorship. And then you may convert an evil human in territory because he called down the fire and they immediately went down and people died and all that. So it's like he did bring people as well to Christ. But I really like the aspect of like banding in on green. So he gets to convert an evil human in territory. That means yours. It's not a territory. It's your territory. So I can convert my own evil human in territory to take a good dominant. So I want to show Elijah was sent to people to go like, hey, this is God's coming. Like, so I showed that aspect of I can convert my own evil to take a good dominant. That was signifying, telling people that God's coming and that I get to convert you to take Son of God from deck, but instead it was a good dominant. But I also gave him that little, he's really strong in battle if you band him in. So it's a little different.
I like that a lot. And I think that's one thing that's not been really fully fleshed out is people converting evil characters to heroes on purpose. Because there's a lot of evil characters that when you convert them to a hero, they get a little really good, actually. Like I know Jaden was trying to do that with one of the emperors, I believe, at a tournament like 4 or 5 months ago. But that was really cool to see one of the emperors converted on purpose and start wrecking it as a hero. So it's always
He beat me with that deck.
I love seeing like that's awesome. I love seeing stuff like that because that's really cool. I love that.
The next one, this one's for you. It's God with Us. It's a nativity card. And this, I really wanted a card. I felt like we added hand advantage later on to GOC to tie it in. Not late, but we brought it in a little later to kind of tie it in. It was supposed to be like a negate theme, and it just wasn't fully coming together. Like it was hard to see that theme. And so brought in hand advantage. I wanted a card that really mattered for hand advantage. Oh, I didn't even go over 20 shekels as one of my favorite card. I forgot. 20 shekels is one of my favorite card. Like I love looking at, like that is one of my favorite cards. So this would be up there too as like, it's unique and really strong, but this ties in the hand advantage aspect of nativity. So opponents must underdeck cards from their hand until they have X. X is how many cards I have in my hand. So if I come in and it's a limit 4, maybe the limit goes away. If I attack you with one card in my hand and all I have is God with Us, if we got rid of the limit and I play God with Us, you have to underdeck cards in your hand till you match how many cards I have in my hand.
That's interesting for sure.
And then if used by a nativity hero, discard an evil card.
That's really interesting. So it really does make the hand size matter. Like
That one's wild. That one's
like
that one's pretty wild
because like a lot of the like you said, a lot of the nativity cards they do better whenever you have hand disadvantage, but sometimes you're like I don't need it. Like this card still functions without hand disadvantage. Like we talk about like Joseph, like he does okay. Like he still gets to go to reserve, and Messianic Messenger still gets to go to deck. So like a lot of them still function pretty well without having to force yourself down to a lower hand size. But there are some that really do want to get to low hand size, John the Baptist, John the Forerunner. So this would be one of the ways I'd consider like, man, maybe I will get down to 2 cards in hand to play this card. Although I wonder, like, with it being a slow card, I guess Mary would be the perfect one to use this card. If only we could stick a star on this, but stars won't be back for a while.
This is all theory talk. We can stick a star on there for you.
Yeah, man, imagine Mary with this. Like, that's a really threatening attack. Like, you've got Fight in Egypt protecting her. You come in with, I'm grabbing God with Us. I have 2 cards in hand. Let's go. Like, oh, really, Mary? Like, oh, okay, let's see. So that would be
and I
very
still gave
interesting.
it a 5-2.
While we're just spitballing here and we're designing cards in theory, go ahead and get them down to 0 in their hand to match you, and then you get to draw 2 after they do that.
Yep.
There you go. That's the real Tyler card.
That's cool.
I won't say
like
anything.
That.
I have something for that. Maybe you'll see it one day. I definitely have something like that. The next card that I really liked John the Baptist, but the other card was Pilate. I think it tells the story real well. He fits into the Roman theme. He very like you may give opponent a character because that's what they did. Like they gave Jesus and got back Barabbas. Give us Barabbas and you can have Jesus. So you may give opponent a character from territory to discard a human hero in a territory, and that symbolizes giving Jesus to die on the cross. Also, he sets up the choose the blocker. I can give you a fool. I can put down a fool. Hmm. So I can give you a full, I can give you choose a blocker character. I can give you your characters back. Like if you're playing tokens and possessing spirit or Canaanites, there's a lot there. So I give you a character to discard a human hero in a territory, and then the opponent must top deck X cards from hand. And because he was the one that allowed Jesus to die, I did want to incorporate the redeemed souls. So that was my tie-in to like Jesus being dead and it going into like Jesus died for our sins, and then he gets you top deck based on the amount of redeemed souls. So he's very thematic when you really break it down. Who Pilate is, that's why he's one of my favorite, and he's in my opinion he can go to print, baby. I love that card.
I think we'd have to change, like, and this is one of this, like, the thing that Marcus helps us on. Like, I think it says you have to give a character to an opponent's territory, so it actually goes to their territory instead of going to their hand. But man, that's cool. Like, oh, here's a fool. Like, you want your Barabbas here? I'll give you a fool. I'll give you the fool, and we'll get rid of an important hero for you. And then you got to top deck a bunch of cards. That's also punishing people that drop their salvation dominance really early in the game. Like, if they're like, oh, I'm going to drop it. Boom, boom, boom. I'm at 3 souls in turn 1. You're like, well, you're going to pay for that for the next few turns as I block you and make you pay for that. I always like cards that make people rethink, like, do I actually want to play this now or do I want to play this later? So that's really cool. And I think
He's
that's
got
one
a
of the
short
cool
burst, so he can get a modifier.
CVP, CVP or CVN. That'd be cool. CVP, yeah, CVP sounds good. Anything else you want to share from these?
I mean, of course, Samson. We got to talk about Samson. Like, he's 12-9. If alone, which makes perfect sense. People forget he was a judge. Like he still very much was in the line of judges. He's the last judge, and they they only key in on his strength and all that. So I like that judges were very much an if alone thing. Like they were the judge of Israel before it was, with kings and nations and everything. They had the judges, and so I like the judges having an if alone clause. Maybe you'll see that someday on a judges theme, but I think they can have a very strong if alone, and that ties into their aspect. But if alone negate enhancements, and then if this card is discarded, you may discard one or up to X, being X equals number of Philistines in play, evil characters in a territory. So if
That's
he comes
awesome.
in, it's a built-in Samson sacrifice on the old card, and then it gets the CVP.
That's really cool. And it can fit into a thematic deck. Like you can play that with a Philistine defense. It's Philistines. It's not their Philistines. So like my defense is Philistines. My offense is Judges. Samson's a big part of my theme, and you get this really cool. Like it tells a story. It's a powerful card. All these things combined, and then like you've got his Samson's strength here too as like the tie-in for him too. I'll say this one real quick. As a good enhancement for gold, 7-0, negate and discard an evil card, increase heroes in battle 10-10. That's fire, bro. And cannot be prevented, so he can actually play it through his own ability. Like, I love that. He juices up himself, or somehow like there's a bunch of judges banded in and they're all getting Samson's strength. Like, that's amazing. They're all 10-10. Like
Mm-hmm.
this battle, like you don't want this battle to end by numbers because it's going my way for sure. Like this is bringing at least 17-10 worth of numbers to the battle, maybe more if you're not negating it. So that's really cool. I
And,
like
and
that
maybe
card.
this needs a if used by on it. It's not just another kind of amazing faith type. I'd probably put if used by a judge or a lone hero. I don't know. I don't know what I would tie in there. Probably if used by a judge on something. But yeah, that card is just, I like increasing and decreasing on numbers. I like when things can stack. Like I can decrease evil characters by O2, and then I can have another decrease of evil characters O2 or O3, and I can flip up an artifact, and all of a sudden, like characters are being decreased by O6, O7, and it's like, whoa, wait a second, I can't even enter battle. Um, I like the increase as well. Like I'm going to increase me this much, and then I'm just going to sit there and wait. Like my numbers still matter. I think people kind of forgot. Like they're very much one initiative. They want to band everyone in or just play a battle winner, and they forget that numbers do matter in redemption. So I'm kind of bringing that aspect here and there. Yeah,
That's awesome.
there's a bunch in there, but yeah, those are some of my favorites.
I like that a lot. Okay, so for our final little thing with you today, I thought it'd be cool to design a card together And I'd like to do my namesake, Agur the Wise from Proverbs 30. This is where we were talking about this earlier. He says, "Surely I'm more stupid than any man." But basically, he's just teaching wisdom and humility to the people that he's talking to here. And if we look back at Classic had an Agur, and they treated him in the same way. Like the old Agur was 8-9. He can place an Old Testament enhancement from hand or discard pile of Book of the Law is active on a human hero matching brigade in your territory. The next time that hero enters battle, the enhancement activates and is discarded immediately. So I like that. That's really cool. Like it's kind of teaching like Agur is someone who's he's not making himself stronger, but when he goes into battle, he's teaching this character in territory, hey, you know about Samuel's edict. You know about, I don't know, like the story of the grapes from the promised land. Like, and he's giving them that knowledge, and they take that knowledge into the next battle. So I think that's really cool. Like, I love when a card tells a story. Agur told the story here. So how can we imagine Agur in modern Redemption? Obviously, this is not a type of thing that we're doing in modern Redemption, but could we make him a teacher? Is he a bander? Is he a protector? Like, how do we convey that he's a teacher of wisdom in modern game, I think?
So just for the listeners, Jake sent an outline just a little while ago, and I brought up very little about Agur. So this is very much off the cusp, which is cool. That way it's not like, oh, you guys already made a card like a week ago and you talked about it. No, this is this is raw. The original Agur, I don't like his numbers of 8-9 because Proverbs 30, this is Agur talking about the words of Agur, the son of Jake, the pronouncement, and I am certainly more stupid than any man, and I do not have the understanding of a man, nor have I learned wisdom, nor do I have the knowledge of the Holy One. To me, he's from Proverbs 30. There's 33 verses in there. I would give him a 3-3. I want to give him any high numbers. To me, he doesn't sound like he's so humbling. I would give him the low numbers, maybe even a 1-3 if you want. 3 goes into 33, So we always look at numbers like that way. So I'd make him low, very low numbers.
That kind of fits with what Jake likes in a character anyway. So it kind of works.
Yeah.
He wants to get initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's saying, I do not have the understanding of a man, nor do I have the knowledge of the Holy One. I would love to see a card that the ability introduces teammate. And you could look at your teammate's hand and play an enhancement from your teammate's hand or something because he's saying he's stupid. Card? Yeah, he's saying he's more stupid than any man. I do not have the understanding of a man, nor have I learned wisdom. So he's relying on others. He's saying like, hey, I am humble. I am no one. God is way higher. For this, he's relying on others. I would love to build in like the very first ability for team to where you could say teammates, and you could look at any hand and you could play an enhancement from your teammate's hand.
Hold on. Time out. I've been sitting here doing what we said on the last episode. I was just going to be in the corner letting you guys talk, but
oh no.
First of all, we know how much Jake likes teams, so this makes sense, right? being a little facetious here, but are you actually gunning for and wanting to actively design cards in the future with the words teammates and designing them specifically for that format? Because that would be cool to me as a teams player.
The fortress I've made and kind of have set aside would be like the old school storehouse that you put the enhancements on storehouse. So this fortress that I designed, I just kind of set it aside for now, allows my teammate, the wording doesn't say teammate, but it allows, because you have shared fortresses, it allows my teammate to place enhancements there, and then I'm allowed to then take them. So that card has teams in mind, but it doesn't say the word teammate. I would like, if it made sense, teams isn't a huge category. And if that's like, once we use the word teammate, like that's it, like, are we always going to have teams, or is this card not going to make sense in 5-8 years? I have no clue. I'm just saying, but, and who knows, maybe elders are listening to this like, dang it, Tyler, shut up.
No, we won't let him shut up.
I do think it's cool. So I do think that would be really cool. It's a different aspect. I think Teams has a steep learning curve and it doesn't need to. I think we're trying to simplify it and bring in more people. And if you have cards that allow you, because right now there's how I see teams is there is no interaction with your teammate. You're just talking. We used to say no table talk, and everyone was like, "Who's on first?" And now it's just like, dude, just say it. Like, it's okay. So if we could make it to where cards interacted with your teammate, and you actually had a teammate to where your decks mattered, and it wasn't just we're going to do a bunch of really fast stuff or whatever, and you could actually exchange things between one another. I think that would be a really fun we talk about design space a lot. We don't talk about design space for formats that much. I think we never even scratched the surface of designing cards for teams.
I think there's also room for like type 2 specific cards as well. So you would have options for stuff like that if you were to start to go down the path of format specific cards. And if you didn't do too many and then a format got changed or was no longer an official format and you lose, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, even 20 cards over that you design over, a 4 to 5 year period. I mean, whatever. We had them while we had them. But it's definitely a cool thing in theory to think about.
Yep. The other was who was Agur. Like, he's the originator of wisdom. Like, Agur translate to the word gathered. So like, how could we tie in gathered and wisdom? So very much like hand knowledge, or I really like stacking my opponent's deck. Like, if I can look at their top X of cards, top 7, and I can stack them however I want, and it's regardless of protect, I like that aspect. Or I like cards that kind of look at the top and kind of say, yeah, this is going to go down here, and then I'll leave the rest on top. A topping and underdecking hero.
So I've been brewing over your idea to make this something that would work in teams. So like at the same time, I don't want this to be a card that's only for teams. So like maybe it says like select a player. That player and select a card in their hand. That player may give you that card to draw 3. If they do not, you draw 3. So like if you do it to your opponent, like you select a dominant that they're not going to give you, you get to draw 3. But if you select your teammate, like they get to give you an enhancement, and then they get to draw 3, right? So like there's an exchange of cards. They've got to draw through some of their deck, and you get maybe something, an enhancement you need from them, or a dominant you need from them, maybe something like that. What do you think about that? Obviously, it might be hard to fit on one card, but that's what I'm going with this in my mind. Like, because I want it to be actually usable in like solo play too. Like, I don't want this to be like Agur. You can only play that in teams.
So let's see. Opponent may give you a good card.
Yeah, player.
Yeah,
so
I'm sorry. Select the player.
Yeah.
And they may give you a good card.
You select the card in their hand,
select it,
and they get to choose whether they give it away.
Okay, so select the player, reveal their hand, or reveal a player's hand. That's easier. That way we get rid of the select. Reveal a player's hand, or just reveal a hand. So that, boom, now we're small. Reveal a hand, select a card. Owner may give you that card. If they do not, you can do whatever. Yeah,
I think it'll be really fun. I think that ties into him sharing wisdom, sharing knowledge. Like you said, he's gathering knowledge from other people too. I think that's really cool. Keep his stats low because he doesn't seem like he's out there to bruise people. He's out there to fight with intelligence and wisdom rather than brute strength.
Okay, we've skipped over one aspect that is very important here. The old one was gold, I believe, right? So what brigade color is this one? We talked about numbers. We've talked about ability. I don't think he has any special identifiers. So I think I don't know, like, where do you guys, if you were to start designing cards out of Proverbs, like, is that on the map of, like, we're going to drop this into this brigade or what?
So I very much want to do, and this doesn't mean we are, I have no, this is just something I want to do. A block of hymns, music, and poetry. I would love to do like the writings of the Bible. Like you have the epistles, and then the book. All the book is really the writings, but I would have to find like a tie-in theme to where it could be the epistles and like like I said, Proverbs, like it'd probably be Proverbs, Psalms, Song of Solomon, Lamentations, like certain things, and I would pull from that. I think that would be really cool, and you can have symbolic characters. But for this, like how I would look at how we break down, like he's not blue, he's not green. Usually, if we don't know, they go to white. I could see this like I could see this with purple. We want to do like
I was thinking purple.
yeah, we want to do like purple as of course royalty disciples, but also like leaders. And he's saying he's so lowly because he's talking about the importance of God, but like he was the originator of wisdom. To me, that is like a type of leader, like a trait of leadership. You see him being purple. I like themes having a lot, like a brigade having a lot. And if you introduce like
Exactly.
Song of Solomon and different hymns and stuff, like obviously hymns are going to be white. So what could wisdom be? Purple makes sense to me. Now you have multiple themes, Old Testament, New Testament for purple. That'd be really cool.
Yeah. Like with Proverbs being largely written by Solomon. So like I think that you could tie that into the purpleness of that. So that's really cool. I like
That's a good point because of Solomon. I don't disagree with him being gold. Parables being New Testament, Proverbs, parables and Proverbs as gold. Like I could see that too, but purple to me makes the most sense. And then you backed it up with your point as well. So I would think purple from a brigade perspective.
I like that. Well, I think that we had some good talk on that. Thank you so much for helping us on this. Thank you for spending your time with us. It's been a really fun segment. I hope everybody else enjoys this as much as I did. But it's always good to hear what your thoughts on this and get to just chat with you and laugh with you and enjoy fellowship with you as we talk about this game that we enjoy so much and God's blessed us with.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for joining. I think if I were to guess, you might have moved into the number one guest spot for how many times you've been on the podcast. I need to go back and actually add that up and try to keep a tally, because I know if I can make it be a competition between you and John, I'll always have you guys ready to come on.
Exactly.
John's definitely got the most recorded airtime on the podcast because he shoots for 3-hour episodes.
I put him and I on one that once at the very end, I was like, you're going to ask me a question. I'm just going to be like, sweet, I'm going to be out. So we were talking a lot, that one.
Absolutely.
I love it. You can tell there's a lot of passion here when we talk about it. I mean, I said the T word and Hendrix popped in here. I said teams and he came right in. Like you could hear when Jake's talking about it, like talking about card design and his passion too. That's what I enjoy talking about. I can talk about card design literally all day. John, you've been in the vehicles on my way to that. I love talking about designing cards, and I'm not the type that's afraid to put stuff out there. You guys know I put decks and ideas and everything out there. To me, it's not like, I feel dumb because I put something out there. No, it's like, let's get some feedback. What do y'all think of this? Whether it's a deck or a new idea, I just put them out there. And Gabe and the rest of the team, I say Gabe because he's done it so much. He's given so much good feedback, and there's some ideas that are like, that ain't gonna work. It's like, well, we see what you're trying to do. Let's get it there. So yeah, there's a lot of passion on this call. It's where we all just enjoy the same thing, and it's just what we do, and that's why it's going on 11 p.m. over here, and we're still talking because we love it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we love it, but some of us have to edit it, so we can go ahead and wrap it
I
up.
just get the hop up.
I apologize, John. Like I kind of look at the time like John's gonna be so upset with me. Good grief! But it was so much good stuff to talk about.
Normally we target like 15 to 25 minutes for this segment. That's a good range. We're at around an hour and a half
30
total.
minutes, and then did a little pause session, and then had another hour. So, woo.
Well, we had 2 segments here, so we only went 3 times over what we should have.
I mean, my channel's Tyler Talks. I know how I am.
Tyler talks. John talks. I mean, now Jake talks.
Agur Lab.
Definitely fun conversation. I think we'll get ready to wrap it up here. But as always, thank you, Tyler, for joining. And it's really cool in such a, I guess, close-knit community that like we get to see who the lead card designers are, whether it was Gabe, then it's you, and then all the supporting people that are on the Elder team that help turn the ideas into cards that we're going to open in packs, you know, at Nationals for this set when it comes out. Just having a little bit more backstory on some of the design philosophy that you guys take into those sets is really cool to have. And it gives us a better perspective when we get a card. Oh man, I really don't like this card. I can, you know, be really like flamboyant about my hatred for this one card. Like I was pretty hard on 12 Jordan Stones. I was pretty hard on it, but you know, like there's a respectable way to do it. And then you kind of get more perspective to do it the respectable way when you know the people behind it that are putting in the hours into working it. And like, as far as I know, none of you guys are paid to do it. It's all volunteer basis. So, I mean, I think having you guys come on, like we sometimes take it for granted that you guys are accessible and are on the podcast a lot, but it's also nice because it gives us that perspective as fans and players of the game.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And you can see, like, I mean, heck, Marcus is on there answering questions when Jake isn't, you know. It's like the people in this community give so much for free. Babooni's videos, Jaden's videos, Rob M, what Daniel the Creator makes. I mean, it's just Land of Redemption being made, just everything. This community is just discipleship. So I love being a part of it and sharing my ideas. Just the team that we work with is awesome. Yeah, very much volunteer work that we just gladly do. And we have fun doing it. I mean, heck, we had fun doing the podcast today. So, and 12 Jordan Stones probably has the fewest use cases out of all the cards. That is, I promise you, I think that's the weakest card in the set, but it tied into what was going on that day to where I could do a spoiler while I was still, y'all got a spoiler while I was in Jamaica. So I laughed when I heard the feedback on it. It didn't hurt my feelings, but
so it's an international spoiler.
First one.
International. Yeah. Extra tropical.
Like you can get me going on design philosophy. That's another design philosophy. It's not every card needs to be the strongest. Some cards should be a little bit weaker, and so people figure that out for their own. Like, oh, I thought this card was good, but it turns out it's not as strong as other cards. And that's one of the things that players learn as they grow is like, oh, you start to determine that card maybe not as strong as I thought it was when I first saw it.
Well, if you're going to expect players to figure it out for themselves, don't make it so obvious.
The card has some pros. Like, honestly, like there's a lot of cards that is better than, and like I wouldn't be surprised if there ever is a good place to put it on a hold. Like, it could be a good card. I'm just saying.
I'd like to challenge you to play it in your next Nationals deck after this year. Once II is out,
so you'll see. Like, as soon as a card comes out, it's compared to top. Hey, this is top level, and that's something I had to do to be like, I want every card to be playable, but not every card has to be like this is going in a Nats deck. Because we have more casual players than competitive, so that's just something that I have.
That is definitely fair.
But yeah, it's a casual card.
If I win with it sealed at Nats, is that going to be good?
If you do what?
If I win with it in II sealed at Nats,
okay,
that'll be good enough.
Yeah, that'll be good enough. So if you get a chance to draft it, you got to draft it.
Sealed is going to be crazy.
Yeah, going to be amazing, man. I love it.
All right, well, I guess we'll stop rambling here. We talked about 10 minutes ago about wrapping up.
Sounding like a Tyler
and
Cox
I do have
video.
to edit this massive thing, so we'll go ahead and end it here, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Peace.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Threshing Floor Podcast. Help us grow our community by leaving a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're at it, be sure to subscribe or follow so you don't miss the next episode. And we'll talk to you next time on the Threshing Floor Podcast.